Hey everybody, it's Camden back with Generation Z podcast. We're kind of gathering that y'all enjoyed the long form conversation, so we are today bringing you a special one with Michael Villegas. He is formerly known as Rumors of Instinct. He's changing that name. He's going by Beyond Top Secret Texan now. The content is the same, the channel is the same, but the new information to contact him and all that will be in the bio. Today, in this conversation, and it is a 3-hour one, as you saw in the timestamp, we get into this government disclosure thing not really being that new, the inevitable invasions that he says are going to happen, transhumanism and technology, Michael's own experiences in the secret space program, and those were amazing to hear. Also, at the end of this, yes, it's 3 hours, but at the end of this, I asked him, why do you feel like you can say these things? Why do you feel like you're safe? Why aren't you watching your back every day? His answers were solid. I absolutely give him credibility in that regard. I believe what he's saying. Now, I did clean up the audio here. His Wi-Fi was a little spotty. I did as much as I could while still getting in his complete sentences and getting out the content of the message he was trying to deliver. But that being said, you will still hear some skipping. Now, I did put out the entire interview this time. Yes, we are taking all of those risks with it, but still, I want to remind you all that we do have a Patreon. We would love for anyone and everyone to support it. We really do have amazing stuff on there. We've got the entire full Greg Carlwood interview, the Charlie Robinson one in full. There is amazing videos Dave has put out for 3-4 months now. Anyone that can, I would love to see you sign up. It's really shows us that you like our content, that you want to support us directly. And in today's age where we are getting censored and shadow banned left and right, it's what matters most to support your creators that you love directly. So I hope you guys enjoy this. It is a fantastic conversation, and we'll see you soon. Let us know what you think.
Awesome. So without further ado, we are on round 3, and not just by popular request, but also because I think this is a very, very crucial time to bring people such as Rumors of Instinct, Michael Villegas back onto the show. And of course, we have Camden here as well with us. So Michael, thank you so much for coming back on, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you very much for having me back on. You're very welcome and everything, and I'm super excited, very enthusiastic to be talking about these events because a lot of important things have happened in a relatively very short amount of time this last week,
Right.
and even the days leading up to it. And there's also a lot of stuff that it links into that we want to cover and everything. So I'm very glad that you guys would have me on here. Very honored that you would be asking me my perspective and everything. So
Well,
very
again,
humble
thank you so much. As we spoke about before we started recording, we wanted to touch upon real world events in correspondence with disclosure. Would you rather get that out of the way with first, and then we'll go into the secret space program stuff again?
It's your show, so yeah.
Sure. Okay. So what do you think? I know it's not black or white. I know it's quite complicated, and there's nobody better to explain it than yourself. What do you think is going on with, or what do you see with regards to all of a sudden CNN, MSNBC, Fox, hour after hour in the prime time news anchors covering UFOs, bringing on the Air Force analysts? Do you think that humans are allowed to do this because they've been told to, or do you think there's still different factions fighting for disclosure, some of them still trying to hold disclosure back? What do you see going on there?
Here's the thing, and so we kind of see it from the fruits of what it produced, and what it produced is exactly what I expected. Is that's nothing radically new, nothing that rocked the boat too much, and nothing that really offered any kind of explanation or disclosure. It's our generation's Project Blue Book. And it's just that big of an issue where it's the government showing interest, and then kind of the mainstream Mockingbird Operation CIA media tantalizing and using it as a great kind of stand-in for an optimistic government like outcome. And it kind of staves off nihilism and alludes to the obvious, which is the UFO phenomenon, the secret space program phenomenon, is being covered up by the military. It's being covered up by the government. They hold the keys to it. They're the gatekeepers to the information. Any information that's going to be official is because they will declassify it from their files, from their research, not civilians, not private enterprise, not any kind of other foreign government body. and this is how weird the conversation is happens every decade, and it was happening throughout the 2010s, from the beginning of 2012 with the Mayan apocalypse to the 2017 UFO flap over major cities. There has been constant, every year almost, a moment where the government is involved. We know with the UAP releases in 2017. As like every year, there is seemingly something where the mainstream UFO community hypes it up because that's human nature, and it becomes something that empowers the government, empowers the military, and you see for a split second people people being open with the secret of the military junta, with the Pentagon really being in charge, with the mainstream media being completely in the dark, with these
sorry brother, would you put the Pentagon and the CIA as one in this particular case, like those that are aware of it in terms of who's controlling what? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it's not like you could say the international intelligence or a military industrial complex.
Sure.
The thing Eisenhower warned us, the octopus, the great enterprise of military and financial power at international scale, the globalists, the people who pull the strings in the shadows.
Right.
Like they are at this moment, like when they had the disclosure papers, the Pentagon papers, basically, and are going to be clearly in charge of it moving forward. Every single thing will be because the military or a military insider, a pilot, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, Space Force, that's who controls the official narrative of these events, these phenomenon.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask very, very quickly, two very quick things. Lou Elizondo, do you believe him, or you think that he's just, again, he's
not wrong?
Okay.
Nothing he says is wrong, but he's telling you his truth.
Do you think he's holding things back because he knows he could be sent to prison or anything if he talks? You don't.
No.
Okay.
I think he's just telling you his truth, and he's doing a good job at it. At the same time, it's like the blind man holding the elephant, where one grabs the leg, another grabs the tail.
Yeah.
You can only identify what your senses allowed you. Was he subject to the same Pentagon controlled narrative? Yes. Any files he attached were his official levels of clearance. Any information that he overheard or was privy to was because the Pentagon higher ups, who were his bosses, to put it simply, the higher officers, the higher intelligence bureau chiefs, allowed that. They knew everything that he was ever going to see, and they know that he was a taskable intelligence asset, like you said in your video. He actually had the security clearance. They knew it's not as secret as you think. There have been books written by insiders since the beginning of the Cold War and before that. Like I said, this is something that, if you really stop and think, it's a open secret, because there are so many whistleblowers, so many insiders, and yes, the legends and the myths of being silenced and murdered and liquidated for telling these secrets is true.
But do you think, in the case of Mr. Elizondo and others in his position, do you think they know things that they were told by the higher ups? You can't talk about this publicly. Like, okay, you know all of this, but on the media, you can only say this, this, and this. Do you think that, or do you think he's giving everything that he knows?
I think he is giving everything he knows, and the weird and kind of tragic story, I guess you'd call it, the undertones, is that that's not enough evidence to be the smoking gun. It is, if you're smart and why. It's because it's a personal choice. Disclosure is always a personal choice. Just it's a matter of you believe, and it's not because there's no evidence of faith. It's simply a debating point at this point, and it's absurd because that's human nature. Some people like one thing and some people like another. Some people like to see the UFO evidence, conclude that there is, obviously a program and a connection, and then look deeper, and some remain extremely skeptical and debate the Navy the United States Navy saying that their footage shows nothing more than balloons.
Right.
And that their pilots were confused, and that the gimbal footage clearly it shows a bird. And
or it's some type of light anomaly. Some guys were trying to debunk it as.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This is a personal choice. They're claim evangelizing it, and that's what I'm saying. Like, we see it as it is and investigate it and see it as the writing on the wall. The skeptics are. So this is what I was saying about Linder. He's telling it like how it's spoken about in his department, experience and history inside the intelligence complexes, the UAP researchers. He drove a desk. It's not a glamorous job. Like I said, he's like Richard Dolan.
Okay, right.
You know, I think I'm saying his name right. Dolan, the British.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
He drove a desk. He saw UFO photos, the real live evidence. But I mean, it's not glamorous. He's just telling you how it was. And yes,
Right.
that he came to the conclusions and saw the real evidence. That's saying, like, these insiders saying as much as they know, it's still not going to change the Pentagon's narrative, which is enforced by the mainstream media, which is enforced by academia. I saw a BuzzFeed article on my Google homepage that was I used to make fun of UFOs, but now that the Pentagon researches, I'm changing my mind. Exactly sums up the ideas of the modern day
Influence. Yeah.
Like you made your own personal judgments and deductions based on your own personal biases, and then regardless of up to a point that the mainstream media and the Pentagon told you now it's that's what I'm saying, like, part of this thought police world that we really live in. And that's what I'm saying, like, yes, but to be honest, exactly, we have critical thinking and objective thinking in our own experiences, and we don't need, because there will be hundreds, if not thousands of these same reports in the next 10, 20 years, each a little bit of information that will not really answer the questions.
Right. Sorry, Camden, did you want to jump in, brother? You had a question?
I was gonna say, so there's been no reports saying as much yet, but to me, the way that they're disclosing this and the way they're also at the same time saying, no, none of these crafts are ours, or we kind of have to, like, we know that at least some of them would be the U.S. military's. It kind of, to me, is going to incentivize just like doubling, tripling that defense budget that they love to up anyways. And there's just, they haven't said anything yet, right? But it seems inevitable. As soon as this disclosure things start to happen, they've already got NASA. I think today the NASA director said they're going to start approaching UFOs scientifically. I mean, you would pretty much agree that's where they're going with it.
Well, remember, yes, the budget, all the money is going to be funneled up to the secret space program. Solar Warden's going to grow with colonization efforts. All that stuff is increasing. Is like this stuff. That's where the budget's really going. And in the news, you're going to start seeing a lot of flashpoints, a lot of Cold War era dialogue and movement with the U.S. and China over Taiwan. All to get the defense budget up, all to get the enlistment up, all to get that, like, black budget stuff excused, because you're like, why do we need all this money in this spy plane? Well, we got that flashpoint in China, and they're building nukes. So now we need hypersonic bombers and lasers that can shoot from space into deep underground bunkers. And we need to train troops to fight underground because the Chinese will come. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so you see how it all starts adding up, where you're like, oh, it's excusing their actions, invading in Hollow Earth, colonizing Antarctica, colonizing and defending the Earth from high orbit. And then exactly. And internally, you're going to start saying, because the threat is always the enemy unknown, right? The question will always come up, well, why don't we just end it with China? How can we bleed ourselves dry economically? How can we keep this Cold War because the Cold War lasted from what?
I mean, 50s until the 90s, I guess you would say. Yeah, no, he's cutting out.
To the 90s.
Yeah.
Was entirely one-sided. As I'm saying, like, the Americans need to.
All right, brother. Sorry, the connection, just for the audience so they understand, we had to just cut that part there because the connection was not stable. If you could go through, starting from basically where you mentioned about Taiwan and getting enlistment up, getting the military up, if you could start from there, please.
It's going to be the new Cold War enemy is communism again. What's new is old. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And it's going to be people fighting for the democratic liberation and freedom of island, like countries like Taiwan, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, basically united democratic front of Asian Pacific countries. Obama actually was going to set the stage for this with the Pacific Trade Union deal he was going to set up. It was this massive NATO in the Pacific, and it was going to be, it included Australia, it included like Indonesia, all these countries. But together, their idea was to create a wall of unified allied countries, militarily and with their navies, to exchange military technology, to obviously create a alliance in the Pacific, specifically as a smokescreen to excuse the, like I said, they're building solar warden fleets in Indonesia, on islands in the Philippines. They recruit a lot of the lower caste workers from stock, like in India and stuff, in these colonies. And how do you explain the mobilization on the ground from any inquisitive eye? Because believe it or not, there are a lot of investigators, even some elite investigators like Jeff Bezos, like level, who want to know the secrets, you know what I'm saying? But they have means, they have satellites, like they're releasing those little pocket satellites,
Right.
etc. Look at how many people investigated flat Earth. That was a test. If you proposed an idea that was controversial, would millionaires, would people who had like means, resources, powers, influence, start questioning the narrative? Would they send balloons up, satellites, one guy built a rocket? I'd say, like, how far would people go to see this? And believe it or not, UFOs, because it's nothing new, like Jeff Bigelow and all that, like people do knock on that door and start learning for themselves. Bigelow is a prime example as someone who bought into the space program. Basically, he was a hotel magnate who just started reading textbooks, reading the books, UFO reports, taking it seriously, looking into the sky, buying specialists, learning from them. He bought Skinwalker Ranch. That's what a awakened modern person, and if you look at his example, would do.
Right.
Learn from experience, hunt those fucking alien skinwalkers back, because exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is what a Howard Hughes level individual would do. And so they have to keep it secret kind of from those people nowadays.
So do you think, sorry, very, very quickly, are there certain factions, whether human or non-human, that do not want disclosure to come forward at this time? Because it seems, okay, because it seems like there have been, over the years since the 70s, maybe even earlier, that the United States government would come close to, particularly under the Reagan administration, disclosing things publicly. But then at the 11th hour, an abduction would happen to spook Reagan, or something would happen, for example, at the time, allegedly, the United Nations Secretary General was going to go forward with disclosure, but at the 11th hour they were abducted. Well, the Secretary General was abducted in order to, I guess we could say, scare Reagan. Why? Like, I mean, in your perspective, from your memories and all of that, why are there still factions, human or non-human, that don't want this to come out? And why are there ones and how come right now it seems like the ones that want to are winning this battle right now?
Well, exactly. So let's go from the very top. You have your Galactic Light Federation, your Ashtar High Command, controlled by the Venusians, right? Ashtar, Charon is a Venusian collective AI. Basically, 100 of their greatest generals and leaders, ascended masters, put into one incarnated full soul. And it's in their divine wisdom that this is a privilege only acceptable by those on an entire species level that have ascended spiritually to a higher vibration. I know that sounds very flowery. That sounds very obtuse. That sounds like, hey, we have people starving here. Why don't we have the 0 point energy? And at the same time, you have to think that these are beings that exactly they do not, they're incredibly alien to us when it comes to this spiritual level. That's where I said it becomes like one of those things where we're as God when, but at the same time, it's like this, they understand people's, like I said, they can see a person and see their birth and their death in the same like moment. And then they see everything you will ever do. There's no secret from them. They have a psychic link. Exactly. Like it's not even a matter of them being able to think, like, know what number you're thinking. They can instantly tell if you're a good or bad person. They know exactly what your desires are. They're exactly, nothing is new to them because they are literally almost like physically incarnated ghosts, because their existence literally transcended physical reality. Exactly, that they're 5D at the very least, and these can go out to like the higher realms. That's
can
like
can they descend themselves if they really wanted to manifest as, say, what we would deem to be like physical bodies or what have you?
Yes, but that is not exact. That is so counterintuitive to their cultures. A person can strip nude and live with wolves if they so choose. It is so aberrant and atypical of a behavior that it would not be something. That's what I'm saying. Like a man can easily just go live with bears. It is not something that humans generally would prioritize. Or just considered civilized. I'm saying, like, it's something that you're like, yeah, I guess you could go just like swim in the ocean forever and then just see how that goes. I see
what you're saying. Yeah, that's how they would view coming down to our level. Okay, I see.
When they sent Valiant Thor down, he really did have to train literally almost since the beginning of this project as an ambassador and an emissary, including lowering his perception as to not be completely himself preoccupied. And it's like, it's such a like I said, imagine if every person you met, like this is like that Charles Xavier kind of level psychic power, where everyone you meet, you know their thoughts. Everyone you interact with, you know when they were born, you see them crying their first breath, and then when they die, and things like, and everything in between, all at the same. So he had to lower his perception into the 3D. It was a sacrifice on his part, and it was a lifelong sacrifice. But anyway, that's like a point. The reason why the Ashtar High Command don't want this to happen is because they don't think humanity, and they are right, as a species is ready to end Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga being this time of detachment, that they want mankind to learn a lesson of letting go.
Right.
And the thing with mankind is that we don't have too little, we are too greedy. We are too, as a species, generally ruthless and callous and insensitive and selfish and confused and angst. I'm not trying to victim blame or anything, but at the same time, that is absolutely correct in thinking that the majority of the species wallows in narcissistic depression and angst and existential misery, and they can easily, there's no faking it. You want them to solve their problems, and they're not going to give you the keys to your first car until you can prove that you can like basically sober up and have some responsibility and like actually be able to survive a little on your own. Now they work with the breakaway civilization specifically because they've curated a special breed of human that is extremely disciplined and actually psychic and on a lot of levels, and that's why they curate and they breed. But generally they consider mankind.
But they probably classify the breakaway human civilizations as separate from the humans on Earth, I would imagine.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Right. Like if they're the ones who are in direct contact, let's say in the new UN, the new Atlantis Rising, there's a reason why people don't know about them. Is because they don't interact with the general population. Specifically because of that, they are extremely focused and absolutely obsessed with elevating themselves at a stage where they can. The elites know this. That's why the elites. Have you ever seen how much they prioritize art? how much
Yeah.
the elite prioritize like
Yes.
beauty
Yep.
and thinking, like wisdom, and it's all about this
Is it
mental
because
faculty.
these elites are trying to replicate that form of thinking that these higher beings have?
And so that when they personally die, because they know that it's not even a matter of human life cycle. Because you got to think, a man only thinks in terms of his own personal life, his own year. And these creatures, they're human. They are an alien species. They just extremely look human. They know about reincarnation as a science. That's how they approach existence. Exactly. Physical life is nothing to them. They can plan lifetimes ahead of time based on their actions in the moment, because they can see, and they've already known that spiritual immortality basically exists. As I say, the framework of the human individual is rightfully so considered extremely primitive. Men in Black had a phrase, like I said, Men in Black, the greatest moment of disclosure ever. Human thought is so primitive, it's considered an infectious disease.
Wow. Wow.
That's what Kay says to Jay. Remember, like, yeah, human thought is so primitive, it's considered an infectious disease. Doesn't that make you feel good?
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, Camden, brother, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, you were a while ago you were talking about how they'll use Taiwan, they'll go, so something I've speculated recently, we haven't really gone to war since World War II, really, right? Not on a full scale at all, and we haven't used nukes, blah blah blah, but that's, to me, it's because we have so much more different versions of warfare now. We have these, direct energy weapons, we have these anti-grav UFO, we have, so if they went to war and they didn't have all these things disclosed that they're trying to work on disclosing now, it would be a fake war. It wouldn't be like, all out. It wouldn't, they couldn't go to war how they wanted to. Right.
War is
So,
absolutely theater nowadays.
right.
And you're right. They call it the Pax Americana and foreign international geopolitics, because you're right, there hasn't been a full scale, real hostile, like, besides the African war, which was a number of bush wars and skirmishes,
Right.
but it was kept at, you're right, at a very low level of technology. It was kept very primitive, and it was fought between colonies. So it was more of a war from the 1800s fought in the 1960s. And
Right.
believe it or not, the mainstream, immediately identifiable military technology like tanks, assault rifles, flak jackets, things that are 1940s technology.
Okay.
Switch that.
So yeah, basically that's my whole thing, is that they can't go to war how they want to until they tell us. They can't start to militarize in these actually advanced technologies until they at least disclose it publicly, so it's, normalized, I guess, right? They have to do that first.
Well, the world is in alliance. The world is at concord, and we have been since the end of World War II, which was actually a great scramble for relic technology, fallen UFOs, basically, to make it simple, right? And ancient cities and things. This was actually caused because of all the real theosophist level, like Ananarbe. I don't know if you know that level, like technology scramble. So because we never have officially disclosed all the fallen technology, not even at a fraction of it, not at all, that all war since then, you're right, is a theater, and it's absolutely a spectacle to indoctrinate the masses. It's mostly enforced through the military industrial entertainment complex.
Exactly.
If Hollywood didn't make a movie about it, it didn't happen.
Right.
And et cetera, et cetera. Like it's mind-boggling that the charade of absolutely people thinking that we are at a stage of warfare, like the world's in chaos and there's just so much warfare. The world is at a state of peace like it's never known before. There is absolutely so few things going on that America's, because it's operates through special forces, it operates through its military extensions abroad in off continent, basically, the AFRICOM, SOUTHCOM, PATCOM, that exactly the average American does not at all encounter any military in his daily life. Like, it's all abroad, it's all overseas. And this is exactly how they hide it, because they just separate us. There's no real communication between active duty service members in the military and civilian population, right? So everything is seen through dramatization and everything.
Yeah.
Really, and I know this sounds silly, but this is absolutely true. They can get GIs who were 18 to 24 or whatever, just dumb GIs, get them in a plane, blacked out windows, fly them around for 18 hours, drop them off in the middle of Nevada, tell them they're in Iraq.
Exactly.
Pick them
They
back
literally
up.
can. Yeah, exactly.
And as and you would know, and they would go home and tell these stories because it was all simulation and things like that. And it's not like this isn't all in concert because of the higher powers. We all work together in the space programs. China's an ally with America, so there'll never be a war between America and China. Russia is an ally with America in the secret space program.
Absolutely,
there'll never be a war with Russia. Exactly, like Britain is an ally in the secret space program. There'll never be a war in Britain with America and Britain.
No.
Like it doesn't like there's no Japan. Okay, here's the thing. Since World War II, when they start talking about the last real war, do you know that I don't want to say it, but Pearl Harbor was absolutely a staged false flag event.
We needed a reason to get involved.
But we needed a reason to depose the Emperor of Japan, the last remaining God Emperor.
Yeah.
And it was done inside the Japanese government as an inside job by Freemasons who were Japanese, because the Japanese were international people and they were our allies. Remember, they fought a war with Russia. They were getting involved with European politics. So the Japanese always were very sophisticated when it comes to learning English, visiting America, and things like it. Once they had that 800 years of isolation. Now the internal political structure of Japan really was they had a God Emperor, and members of the society thought they could never ever disagree with them. These Freemasons who had gone to the West, had been schooled in Europe, had been schooled in America. Strangely enough, most of the Japanese military had received training in America by the United States Navy. A lot of Freemasons in the United States Navy.
Right.
I'm saying it's an inside job.
You absolutely can speculate that 100%. I can't disagree with you, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like the idea of even there being a real like World War II is not what we know. World War II was a lot of crisis actors. It was filmed mostly on a soundstage. A lot of it in the California mountains. I know that's a taboo because we have the Holy War idea of it. Like, no, we went and fought Hitler and Captain America punched him in the fucking chin. No, it was all a mad dash. The real one was a mad dash through Europe, mostly through Russia, the steeps, the Eastern European Russia border, to find UFOs that had crashed in those forests, had the Bosnian pyramid level technologies, and spots like that. Romania, for example, had a lot going on. The Ukraine had a lot going on. These places are still kind of important Balkan areas.
Right.
And it's not because they want those areas. Those places are built literally on the remains of ancient Tartarian cities that just have so much technology, that just have so much wealth. Like we're talking streets literally paved with gold. Like it's that's what I'm saying. Like, do you think the Russians invaded Georgia?
Right.
Because Putin, had to defend Russia's honor. That was a staged annexation of something that they knew that that they were trying to play hardball with. And that's what I'm saying. Like, do you think they annexed the Crimea because
you're speaking in the last 5-6 years.
That's what I'm saying. Like, do you think Russia needed more land?
Right. So you think it's far more than just what Putin is saying with regards to it being a cultural thing and all that?
To answer your question about the open skies treatment, the reason why Russia is doing that is I think Russia may be, I don't know, doing stuff solo, going rogue, that is already there's a contingency plan for. They're afraid of the insect invasion. Everyone's afraid of the insect invasion, right? So there's multiple things. Yes, the Astro High Command don't think we're evolved enough. They're trying to evolve our mindset because that's the most important thing. The only way we can exist as a spacefaring interstellar race, where a person can be just aware of that and go to work in the morning and function as a regular human being.
Yeah.
Also knowing the responsibility that there are fucking reptilians flying around and shit and near Jupiter, and they have like fucking world, like it's like a Death Star level, like, but we're to sleep safely, you know, to actually keep from going insane. That
Yeah, and to want to
Lovecraftian,
still pay their bills and all these things that, like, yeah, it's yeah.
exactly. To do that, we have to be really zen, really, you know, basically monk level intelligent, and this is where we're going. The Vedics, the Vedas even talk about it having happened, you know, all the time, an infinite loop of time.
Mhm.
That we're exiting the Kali Yuga, which is learning how to do, how to let go, how to live peacefully and be one with the source. You know, not to constantly be paranoid, afraid, not to be greedy, not to feel like we need, but to be at peace, and exactly kind of like empower ourselves through this kind of struggle. It's the forge of the fire type thing, but afterwards, like they say, we kind of come out very golden, we come out stronger, and then we have literally millions of years of coexistence with the star people, with demigods, where they come to earth, they walk amongst us, we go to them, we learn from them, we accept, I say our society is enriched because of that. Now, to get through this barrier requires their permission, because it's all going to come from above, right? And no man knows the time, because exactly how can one man who elevate another man? How can one man who's in the mud pick up another man from the mud, right?
Right.
And this is why you have
Right.
these world leaders who exactly they're not in charge. And to be honest, they're not doing a great job at empowering people. They're trying to. This is where you get your Illuminati. This is where you get your occult symbolism. This is where you get your very heavy-handed versions of trying to perform magic and stuff in front of the masses. But this is all part of the grand plan, the grand design, which is try to get people up, like try to elevate them and make them see for themselves what's really in front of their eyes. And exactly, like it's like we don't understand sarcasm as a species. Like, and if only we make it, can literally happen overnight. It could literally be a mass awakening, like many people predict, but it will never be from people. It will never be from governments. It'll never be from billionaires. It'll never be from the elite.
Right.
No celebrity is going to be able to wake people up. It'll be from the masses. It'll be people, exactly, from literally just wake up and they're going, fucking aliens are real and we're on Mars.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It literally is that easy just to accept that as the truth. And I know that sounds weird, because that's the programming I have to shame myself, to kind of fight myself, to be like, that's fucking crazy. And you're like, that's exactly the programming they have already instilled, because they exactly like the Matrix is not made by the elite. The Matrix is made by the Ashtar. Now, this is where I was going to say is why a lot of people think they're evil. And it's because they keep us in a mind. It's the same thing that when aliens could literally just walk amongst the cattle, as they called it, but because their psionics was so powerful back when they controlled the world, we were just never aware of them. They were literally invisible.
Sorry, brother, you cut out at the part when you said that the Ashtar command is keeping us in a mind
prison, I think.
Confined mind prison. Yeah.
Mind prison. A Matrix,
Okay.
yes. And I think like the illusion, this whole thing is a hologram, holographic reality. Yeah. That
right. And
like,
people think this is for a.
You had the Echo group on a video, Gen Z. So how you made that was a group of, exactly, the Illuminati know this. The Illuminati try to replicate this. They know that through psychic ability and meditation, and like the CIA disclosed, you can create your own physical reality based on mundane events that we know as coincidences and miracles, and like, you know, sacred geometry type things, like Fibonacci sequence. Yeah, you can master it. And this is why, like, the Echo group said, they will control the large scale timeline, you will create the micro scale timeline. That's absolutely the modus operandi of these Ashtar, creating the long scale timeline, where eventually, no matter how long it takes to us, they will have delivered us, raised us, basically given birth to a higher order species. And they're working on several species at the same time on Earth, right? And it's their call exactly to keep it secret. And while while the Pentagon is alluding to it, while people make these project blue books, and that's what I call them, like the project grudges, that always disclose a little bit of information. This is how they play the game. If they only give you an inch, it'll take a lifetime for them to give you a mile.
Right.
And if they only have 10 miles to work with, 10 lifetimes is a long fucking time. It's 1,000 years.
Yep. Right. So do you see, with regards to the real, like what's happening now around the world with regards to potential disclosure, I mean, I know things could change, nothing's set in stone, but do you see the next 5-10 years being significant for the people of this planet, or no?
Extremely significant, and not because of top down, like Pentagon military insiders telling what they know, but from the common person getting technology like cameras, smartphones, the internet. Surprisingly, things like TikTok and Instagram are perfect for UFO videos. One, because they are popular with third world people, or BRICS nation people, and they are short. And so UFO sightings generally are short.
Mm-hmm.
As a rule. So a 30-second clip of a UFO can get 10 million views overnight, because people in India and people, like I say, and like, China can see it. And these cultures, which have a lot of censorship, say people underestimate the human spirit. And this is not, like I said, it's not going to upset the Ashtar when this happens. This will be us being like, oh, you finally grasped the stone, grasshopper. Like, you finally woke up. It's literally, that's what it is. The Ashtar are showing up in spaceships going, are they going to believe in us yet? Like, they're not ready for it if they show up and they have to land. Think about it. If you are a 5-dimensional, basically demigod, an incarnated, like, ascended master, exactly, like defender of the earth who liberated a species, and they don't believe you exist in most cases, even when you're flying around their cities, like, why don't they land? And then that's what I'm saying, like,
why does it take that much?
That's exactly.
Yeah, come on.
You don't have to, exactly. It's like those Amazonian tribes or African tribes that didn't believe white people were real until they had to touch them.
Right. Okay.
You understand? Yeah. It's an extreme act of mercy just to be flying around, and they really are on parade. They're showing up in full armada. They're showing up in full formation. It's only a matter of time before they are landing. But then when they start landing, those videos are going to be going viral around the world, and people are still going to be skeptical and go, nah, it's CGI.
Right. Well, of course, people are doing that now. I mean, the craft are, at least with regards to modern human history, the craft seem to be coming closer and closer than ever before. Now, we could argue maybe they've always come close. It's just, we didn't have the cameras to document them or film them, or
we didn't have the cameras to document them. In 1990, a VHS handheld camera cost almost $1,000. This is a time when minimum wage was like $4 an hour, right? And I'm saying, like, the idea has been really undersold how important and game-changing video equipment is, and recording equipment. And exactly, it's not like an expert. And the thing of the cameras is that they're designed not to catch high-fidelity aerial photography. That's fucked up. And that's actually a conspiracy that people are going to be tackling and need to tackle. The flat Earth people actually broke it open. You can't use a off-the-shelf camera to record the horizon or to record the moon. It should. It has reportedly a 35-time magnification. You go record a cloud, see how hard it is to do that. Go record a bird. Go record just a plane. Go see how much fidelity. I have a Samsung 8. I can barely get fidelity at max resolution with an app that increases the resolution. You've seen some of the videos of the planes flying overhead. They're almost invisible. To my naked eye, they are literally like 30 feet above my head.
Well, see, I just wanted to add very quickly too, for the people who constantly are looking to debunk, the thing I noticed with them too is that, like you said just right now perfectly, when it's from a distance, it's, oh, well, how come the videos are always blurry? And then the odd time we get an up close HD look, they say, well, it's fake. So
It's
with this,
exactly.
right. So I see what you're saying as to why the Ashtar command would look at us and say, you're definitely not ready.
Ashtar Command have gone so far as to hijack BBC radio shows, BBC TV shows.
Was that the one in the
American TV
70s?
network. Yes, they've gone so far as to abduct humans and just tell them what's going on and then release them back into the wild. And that's an actual tactic that the British used back when they used to colonize the South Pacific. They'd kidnap a couple of islanders, but treat them really well, like give them food, laugh at their jokes, like, you know, like tell them like what was up, tell them the truth, and then release them back to their village to tell the others. That's what I'm saying. This explains everything from like the people who are abducted and then they're mated with. Like that one guy who the aliens are actually treating him super well, and they're having kids and like introducing them to the children over his life. That's what they've been doing. This is nothing new. They've actually gone to even more extreme measures in the past, knowing that it would take more to.
Sorry, brother. You
guys freeze?
Yeah, completely there.
What's the thing you heard?
Last thing we heard was about
what was the last thing you heard?
The small towns in Italy, about how they've been doing this for a long time.
Oh no, I was gonna say like they've been doing it in South America. They've been doing it internationally. Every single nation has abductions and UFO sightings over major cities. From even exactly no matter what the like Moscow, Washington D.C. They flew over Washington D.C. They've flown over Moscow. Like they cannot make it. Other nations have accepted them as fact. The Belgian UFO wave, the Belgian flying triangle wave. That was the thing. Exactly that. Like, they're not shy about it.
The incident of in Iran, the Tehran incident of 1979, I think it was.
Yes, exactly. Like they show up regardless if we act hostile to them. Right. And this is the thing is that they sent their probes first. A lot of like the Roswell incident where they say we shot down a UFO with gray pilots by using radar.
Yeah.
This was before the Greada Treaty, before they publicly, you know, announced themselves as Valiant Thor. It was obviously just to see what we would do. Right. But I'm saying this is what they know we're primitive. It's not a surprise to them. Remember, they liberated us. Right. This is how primitive we used to be. All the violence and hedonism and decadence of the ancient world, like what you hear, the horror stories of Rome and shit, that was all because reptilians wanted us to live like that. And we did for thousands of years. Crucifixions were, think about it. That was a real, like people were savage, even in the most civilized societies. And most societies were not considered civilized. They were barbaric. And saying if an alien landed or showed itself to some Gallic guy, I mean, everyone wants to say he would be cool about it, but I don't think he would.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying like everyone wants to think like very positive about the ancient world. I don't think they understand that hundreds of thousands of people would kill each other with swords. That was like what they did.
Right.
I was saying like the aliens know all about this. That's what I'm saying. The aliens watched it and were like, we got to liberate these people because they have hope. They have beauty. They don't really want to do this, but they still know that we were created to do that. And it was simply because the Orion Draco fed off that as a generation device for Loosh, for energy. And exactly, like it's fucked up. That's why the war happened. That's why the liberation happened, because we were being horribly abused, enslaved, forced into the most inhumane living conditions and behaviors and perversities. I was saying, like, think about it. Like, it's a lot of progress that they've made. They got to the point where the average person wants to kind of meet them, which is good. They need the majority. They need the people who influence and rule. They need the people to have courage, which is a lot of components. Everyone can believe in them, but do they have courage? Are they afraid of them? Do they hate them? Then that's going to be the next step, is when people start believing in them and what opinions that they will form because of it. Are they enemies? A lot of people will hate them no matter what. A lot of people think they're demons. Think about it. That's what I say. Like, people are super primitive. They think they're fucking demons.
Right.
That's what Lou Elizondo pitches. Yeah.
Lou Elizondo. In the Middle Ages? Is it the Catholic Church is like, well, they're demons? Like,
yeah.
This is not because there's an agenda. That's because that mind prison stuff. As I say, like, if you can't graduate from the fact thinking extraterrestrials are demon.
Right.
And then there's the whole like they want to make it a Christian UFO kind of cult where it's like attached to. I was like people's medieval superstitions are being modernized to adapt to the UFO phenomenon instead of having them dispelled by the UFO phenomenon. Like
Right.
Obama came together and just said that people would make religions based on it. He's absolutely right.
Right.
Obama said his truth too, is that the reason why he wouldn't be surprised is because he thinks of things in a very nihilistic but agnostic way, right? And he's an
Yeah.
elite. He used to lead the free world. I was like, he's an elite. So that's what I'm saying. Like he has his elite ways of thinking, and he's saying that the common person though would worship these aliens like false idols, which is not what the Ashtar want to do. Remember, the Ashtar are aliens, even though they look like Nordic people. They
Right.
are alien. They don't. So I'll say aliens. This is not what they want them to do. They don't want people to worship them as gods. They want them to cooperate as equals.
Right. Got
Now
you.
they
Sorry,
want
before,
them to get
sorry,
off
before,
their knees and live and stand for themselves. That's like the breakaway society, the Solar Warden already does that. And they
right.
are training an elite group of people to be the, not say the replacements, but yes, the replacements. There's a reason why those Georgia Guidestones are like, hey, we gotta like, call the herd. And because they already have the replacements ready to go. They have people who are born in Mars. They have people who are born on the moon who would love to live on Earth.
Right.
Who would love it. Who would love to see an actual whale. And that's what I'm saying. It's at this point, people don't think it's going to be that sudden. And if it has to be, it will, because there's a deadline. And the deadline is this very odd alien invasion that's going to happen. It's not going to be a hostile invasion, but it's going to be an unstoppable colonization of Earth by a very basically like a space locust, like a big hive mind locust thing. That's just it just moves across the old reptilian empire, just devouring technology, their resources, the cities and everything. And it's going to be a lot like District 9 if we're not intelligent enough, as if we're not already ascended. It's just going to be a lot of bullshit and butting heads and like exactly like there's a lot of disclosure in this world, and exactly I think a lot of the last movies in the last 10 years have been exactly foretelling this incoming alien invasion that's going to happen, and it's going to be like I said, it's not a matter of 100 or 1,000 ships. It's like 1 billion insectilians just kind of teleport down on Africa in the middle of Kenya, like Halo. Like I said, they just show up, teleport down. There's 1 billion in this gigantic ship, and you have to either be sophisticated enough to know how to navigate this new future, hopefully with the Astro High Command, letting the Solar Warden, giving them the authority, giving the kind of like you have to be all ready for the future. Like, this is the future war. Or you're going to have to be ready for the apocalypse, because those two are your options.
Right. Sorry,
like
before we go on, sorry, Camden, brother, you wanted to jump in?
Well, yeah, I was basically gonna expand on that. There seems to be the way that people are like, oh, you said Obama talking about creating religions through this and things. There seems to have been a kind of a slow progression. For you had like the 90s, a real rise in atheism and agnosticism. You had and materialism all in the same time. And then even before that, you had loads of people getting into, if God's real, why can't I see him kind of things. And then if you're able to cultivate a UFO creator God kind of thing that you can, maybe it's a hybrid that you've cloned that you can then control. Maybe it is Astro High Command, but if you can pitch a narrative to the masses that this is your God, this is your new religion, this is your like very Promethean kind of movie. This is who you should worship. A lot of people would immediately buy into that. That's something that they've materialistically been inclined to believe really easily. And so, I mean,
I believe you're right. And I think that the idea of like Roscoe's Basilisk is a reality, and it's going to be, like I said, remember, transhumanism is huge in the secret space program. Solar Warden's big into AI. It's big into like android cybernetics. It's big into that cyborg like transhumanistic reality. That is an absolute fact. That is reality when you enter the secret space program. So yes, there's a spiritual component where they want these people to be extremely, by our standards, extremely spiritually like weaponized, but they want them also to be mostly cybernetic. They want mostly augmented, right?
Mm-hmm.
The human body to them does have built-in flaws to limit our potential, right? They want genetically engineered superhumans. That is an absolute goal of theirs. The AI god that's going to arise, and for lack of a better words, already exists.
Right.
We already give authority to this AI in Solar Warden. There are actually multiple AI in Solar Warden that have ultimate command over Solar Warden. It is such a complex task, do you understand? That it's powered by humans, and in some report, it's understanding of it easily is like Minority Report, where you have these like augmented savants
Mm-hmm.
that are literally plugged together into a mainframe, and they already have this technology releasing on Earth, and they can see visually through a computer screen their thoughts. And as they astral project and remote, it's augmented by an AI, and it's created because everyone sees a different like possible future and timeline, and that this thing basically creates in its reality. That is an absolute thing. They want the neural lace. They want this AI plug into it. In many ways, except there's not a right or wrong way of ascending humanity. Now you will have to understand that you will have to do it one of these ways if you are to ascend. Either
Right.
go full they said the Vedic solution, where you're absolutely like, a sage as you approach the future, keeping, you have to up your game. To put it real talk, exactly, to kind of reach out. I know it's danger of being too obtuse. Like real talk, you have to up your game by multiple of 100
in some form or another with you. Right. Yeah.
To be able to keep this. Yeah, and it's absolutely that case. Like the AI god will help many people, but also kill off and reduce and eliminate a lot of people too. You're right. And it's the idea that progress is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Progress is a double-edged sword. And
These
it's
smart cities and these things that would be AI controlled, like when you go to a picnic and you don't think about the ants that you step on the way there at all. What's to stop this AI from just deciding, well, this demographic of people is not useful or meaningful at all. I don't need to keep them around, not to kill them purposefully, but just turn all the red lights to green, and everyone end up just, smashing and dying.
No, at that point you have dark city level fucking craziness, where like what you think is reality is absolutely a simulation controlled to the nth degree by this AI, and it'll have human agents. It'll have like Tomorrowland level replicants that would just go to sleep, and then someone would just come into your house and erase you and liquidate you, and it would basically be put into a liquid emulsifying machine and then sprayed on that garden where people will be having a picnic. It'll be like Eon Flux in an extreme way. And I say, like, no, it's progress is a double-edged sword. You're right. We're gonna have superhumans with no illnesses, IQs of 200, beautiful super beings of every race and elite, like just living in idle, beautiful luxury. And we're only going to have a population of 500 million, regardless if the 6,500,000,000 don't like it.
Yep.
And there is a mass grave awaiting them, like it always has been. And people need to realize that people have committed genocides, they have purged, they have eliminated entire large segments of populations in America, all around the world, very routinely. And it's absolutely the same case. And you're right. It's what if the British don't want the Irish anymore? What if the Indians don't want the Sri Lankans? It's what if the Sri Lankans don't want the Tamils? It's what if the Malaysians don't, or the Burmese don't want that Muslim indigenous refugee population anymore? This is exactly this. Like, it's at some points more humane. And I know this sounds exact. That's the kind of thing so fucked up, but this is their plan, to give that choice to an AI that'll run the data and do the math.
Sorry, Mike, just curious. The example that Camden gave about a minute ago, I think was a phenomenal example, unless we're missing the point. But when he said, when it's kind of like when you let's say go for a picnic, and you go to, and you don't realize how many, how much grass you've stepped on, how many roots you may have killed, how many ants you may have killed. Would that be the same idea when you say progress is a double-edged sword?
I would say it's not that man is considering the ants, it's ants how they consider each other. When a queen ant has a hive,
Okay.
she does not consider the lives of her drones. She considers
Right.
the wealth of the whole, and they are enslaved to her whim through biology. And the ant drone is in an existential certainty, determinism, to follow the course of his species, her species, because they're all female. Remember, even the idea of their gender is controlled by the biological operations and instincts of the queen. They exist in a hive mind. As in, then the idea of liberty through the hive mind, the connecting with the all and being in the one is the physical incarnation of what is written about in the book Revelation in many different religions, and it's attaining a state of oneness where the
Right.
many are no longer individuals separated from each other, but we're all brought together in what they call the Godhead, which is an omni. That's like the Ashtail are trying to. They have already become an extremely alien, organized, and functioning creature with priorities that extend beyond into energy frequencies that we can't barely comprehend. Ideas of individuality and your life it's not humans considering ants, it's humans considering how a jellyfish thinks. It doesn't have a brain, doesn't have a nervous, doesn't think. We don't, maybe it doesn't. That's like to our understanding of consciousness,
Right.
a jellyfish is not conscious.
Right.
Now,
I get it.
you disregarding the jellyfish's feelings is more a matter of scientific debate
Right.
than a philosophical one. Because yes, a cow may have feelings and that may make you want to go vegan, but you got to find the nervous system on a jellyfish.
Right. Okay. I see exactly what you're talking. Okay.
It's
see.
not, that's the thing. Like, this is a matter more for the Ashtar of a scientific debate. And their masters are in the Galactic Federation of Light, and they are even more alien because they exist galactically in societies that are scales 3 and 4 and 5 and higher. Remember, in Ashtar society, they are like comparable to a scale 2. Now, humans are a scale 0.
Right.
They want to at least get to a scale 1 before they can take the training wheels off, right? And let man literally live in the Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Federation of the, what they do basically to kind of become an adult species.
Right.
Now, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the idea that they're going to do this, and it's going to happen regardless if we like it or not. Ray Bradbury wrote a short story called Childhood's End.
Right.
And that was disclosure. Like I said, this is an open secret. This every elite
So,
member
Mike, sorry, just to double
exactly what they
confirm.
know.
Sorry, Mike, just to double confirm. So, what we're seeing, for example, in cases of like, when they talk about in Star Trek, for example, like there's an episode in Star Trek Next Generation. Captain Picard is he's him and his team are caught surveilling a very primitive planet, and they end up explaining by the end of the episode to that species that, like, yes, we can show you stuff, but if you don't know how to get there, it's pointless. So it's just like a kid with, you can put a kid on a bike with training wheels, but I mean, every so often, the odd child might be able to ride a bike right away without the training wheels, but most of them need the training wheels. And you should not teach them how to pedal. At most, you should just put them on the bike and let them, they have to figure out for themselves, because if they don't go through it, they won't learn. Is that the point, basically?
Yes. And now imagine it's way more than just riding a bike or learning how to do something like a skill. It's life and death on a massive spiritual level, not only for the person you're teaching, but also you. Because in my own experience, the Ashtar High Command are ordered to be our guardians. They are ordered, and they have to fulfill their obligations and to survive. Basically, that's the Galactic Federation of Light. ultimately comes down to that, where you are either perfect in your function or you are obsolete and you are demoted, quote, by basically being dropped down, de-evolved, right? And so they are under an angelic amount of pressure. So imagine that. To put it in our own superstitious ways, God has ordered angels to prepare us for the future, right? Jesus Christ,
Right.
you know about the Christian, the whole story of Christ, where Jesus Christ was put into Mary. The angel Gabriel did that. So the God
Right.
told the angel, so Gabriel could not fail.
Got
Regardless,
you.
I was like, regardless, this was going to happen. Mary had to come to peace with it, which he did, but Joseph had to come to peace with it too. And there is an argument where they said they even had to come to physical force and basically wrestle Joseph back to force him to kind of like get it right. They had to show like their full force and reveal. I say
Right.
like the idea is that these things have to happen. They are higher powers. Mankind doesn't have to even understand it, but it will happen. And to us, it seems like it's biblical levels of like prophecy and fulfillment, and thus when we interpret it, it looks to us like occult shit, like occultist stuff. I was saying, like, if the Illuminati is sitting there discussing an ancient prophecy, that's what I'm saying. It's like the ancient tribe discussing what Captain Picard said like 100 years before, and they're like, "That what the bald man say?" You know, like, "Oh, the bald man said this from the stars." You know, like, and they're like, "Yes,
Yeah.
he did."
Yeah.
You know, like, they're trying to repeat it and keep it fresh. And you're right. This is something that regular people, but they have an advantage, which is the Secret Space Program bridge, which is the Greada Treaty, which is Valiant Thor. Let's not forget that there are millions, hundreds of millions of people who have already been through the Secret Space Program and are currently in the Secret Space Program. Humanity is not one ubiquitous thing on Earth that's kept in the dark. It's two societies now.
Right.
The Game Reserve Society, which we are in, and literally hundreds of millions of human beings who are born off planet, who are born selected already. They're not wild births. They have already been genetically designed this way since the 1800s. Like I said, it was science to us. It's new to us, but it's not new. They can easily start genetically manipulating people during the cowboy days. That would not be a problem to them. Just like how Alexander the Great, the legend was his mother was impregnated by Zeus in the form of a serpent. And that sounds to me like an Orion Draco.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they could easily have been doing this since the dawn of time. They have been creating the very species which we're discussing. This is why I'm saying it's not just Captain Picard found a wild species and that he's in desperate straits too. No, this was the plan, and it has been the plan for the beginning of the millennia. And, all of history has been a hologram mind prison that the Astro beings have created as the pebble in their hand. So they have the pebble of truth. The hand is the matrix. And they close the matrix on us, but they want us to get the pebble. Right. And we're like, why do they want us to get the pebble? Why do they close their hand if they want us to get the pebble? Because it's an ascension process, because you are going to have to grab the pebble if you are going to do that. That's it. And now here's the thing. We're not the only ones in school. We can see that there's other people in the academy, right? In fact, this the way you think about it is that they're already grabbed the pebble. This breakaway civilization, this society already grabbed the pebble. They're on level 2. We're still like stumbling in this realm, right?
Right.
Now, not everyone, because the whole idea is that it's a game reserve, and the reason why the Secret Space Program exists because of 20-year and back, they'll return you and release you back into the wild after you've already done the. Exactly, that's how it's a higher level way of doing it, but there's no secrecy at that level that we're dealing with here.
So before you go on, when people say Project Bluebeam, I know you and I have discussed this before. I think even the first time around, you said that you would dare to argue, if I'm not mistaken, that the blue beam is happening all around us. Now, putting that aside for a second, I guess the concept of there being a mass sort of like Independence Day style invasion, for many different reasons. The way that you're explaining this sounds like that type of invasion, if you will, is so primitive that it almost serves no purpose, which is why it hasn't happened yet.
It actually has happened once.
Okay.
Or at least
Okay.
from what I've experienced.
Got
Um,
you.
I have heard that there were some skirmishes between ultra-terrestrials and crypto-terrestrials and humanity during the first days of the 20th century, the first 10, 20 years of it, including in Antarctica and things. There were secret wars, but as regards of alien invasion, when I was 14 in 2001 in the secret space program, we were part of a defending force against Orion Draco as they invaded our orbit and landed in Antarctica. They made a direct assault landing on Antarctica. We were defending it. We were basically tasked to do it alone because the Astro High Command considered it a test. Like I said, in their infinite wisdom, they were like, you should handle this. This is just a small armada. Exactly. This is a light armada. Like I said, the physical ideas of war. So in your opinion, just for fun, how many ships do you think is in a large armada or a large squadron in space?
I mean, just based on the images I've seen the alleged images. Oh, I mean, it within one mothership. Are you asking?
That's what I'm saying. Like the idea of scale, like what people don't realize is it's not 8 ships, it's not 10 ships, it's hundreds of ships, thousands of ships.
Yeah,
The Astro High Command can bring millions of ships to bear.
Right.
They can literally appear with millions of cruiser class ships. Like it's not the physical warfare scale. You're dealing with what the Orion Draco has a species in the trillions. They operate moons, asteroid colonies, free floating space stations, etc. They showed up with thousands of ships, directly attacked Antarctica. Solar Warden, it tried its best to defend Earth's orbit. They did get through, landed in Antarctica, basically activated a lot of bunkers that we had already knew existed, tried to defend. They were able to get inside. We only really defeated them when other extraterrestrials intervened that were in the Astro High Command. The Venusians intervened, a contingent of them. One of the princes had enough. He just sent a lot of his men in and like basically helped us out. There were also members of the Greys that took advantage of it. And like I said, the Greys are trying to wipe out the Orion Draco at that's one of their passions, that they absolutely hate the Orion Draco, who are hostile to them. The Greys being, former creations of the Orion Draco themselves. Like I said, there's a lot of things happened around 2001, and it was a short but very intense assault on Antarctica.
Camden, brother, you want to jump in?
Yeah. I mean, just really a perspective question for you on that exact incident. So you, of course, like I get from the Astro High Command, that was a test for them, but it wouldn't have been a test so much from the Orion Draco small armada that was invading. That was them trying to do an actual like accomplished mission, right? Just asking, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I've already made a video on it, as far as we intelligence knew at the time, and remember I was only 14, I was nowhere near a position to actually know, besides what I was being told, that these were rogues. They were just a rogue warlord party trying to attack and take advantage of what they perceived to be weakness, either through desperation on their part, either having already been defeated and having nowhere else to go, or trying to steal and operate the bunkers, whatever was in those bunkers in Antarctica. They opened the door for us, which is how we started getting into the ancient Antarctic complexes, the labyrinths in Antarctica during the early 2000s. They actually opened locked doors which we could not open. And that's like, yes, the Astro, but the Astro really, that's a petty matter. So what, we can't get to a door? That's like, figure it out. That's they kind of what they say. They know the Astro High Command, the Orion Draco technology is irrelevant to them. That's why they beat the Orion Draco. That's what it's like. It's not a fair fight. It's not a comparable like one-on-one where they're the forces of good and they're arm wrestling against the forces of evil.
Right.
Like I was even thinking about that today, remembering it. When the Astro Venusians fight in melee combat as a sport, right, as their martial art, they move so fast that the human eye can't detect it. And while the Orion Draco can move as quickly, the Astro High Command never resort to that. They just use Vril, like the Force. And they will just hit right at the right moment. Because remember, they can see through time. They just
Right.
understand where to line up the probability to do exactly what they need to do. And they fight with basically these golden lances and spears, and their weapons shoot molecularly thin shards of diamond. But they shoot them with molecularly thin. There's no armor that can protect it, so there's nothing really that can stop it. The only problem is they don't view combat as winning and losing, as they view it as killing, and they view killing as lowering your karma. So those that do make the sacrifice and discipline themselves to become warriors are actually dooming themselves to what they call insanity. And their insanity is thinking like warriors, thinking about war. And that the idea that their commander, their leader is 100 different ascended master souls that were previous generals put together in an AI construct. Like it's just the personality. It's just like the personality of Sun Tzu, General Patton, Hannibal, like Attila the Hun. It's like Napoleon. If you mix them all together with Jesus, that's the Ashtar, and that's why people realize. Then they kind of get like, it's extremely strict and enlightened at the same time, and it's a responsibility that no quote unquote living Venusian would take, because it's what, like, you know, it's like, it's to them authority is a punishment, and it's not a punishment, but it's like a burden, a sacrifice.
Yeah,
it's sacrifice. It's not a glorified thing to be a warrior in their culture. It's one of the darker, more negative aspects of their existence, and thus they have to wear like mourning colors, and they develop like sadism and like just weird fucking shit. I'm saying, like, it's just, to us, as they dress and act extremely bizarrely, and they're extremely violent when they are violent, but it's not to the scale like we think. Like, they will absolutely detonate a colony from space using solar energy. They will terraform a planet. The way they defeated the Orion Draco was they attacked the sun. And they lowered the sun's radiation, and thus it basically made the planet a barren wasteland compared to the Orion Draco, who need radiation, who need a lush, hot environment. Like, they basically froze the planet. You're dealing with someone who would freeze you alive. They froze Antarctica. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're dealing with a species that will freeze you alive, and it's because they operate on a scale, and that's why the Astro High Command is the High Command. That's why they literally are the military empire that the solar system, that controls the gateway to the surviving sun, our sun, the last stargate, if you want to call it a star, because it really is a gate and a star, and you can teleport through the sun into higher galactic realms.
I was just going to ask you about that, because there's ancient drawings on walls and very detailed ones from ancient human civilizations showing what clearly look like UFOs coming in and out of a particular part of the sun. And that's also seen. And those, even the NASA photos as well too, the ones that you'd have to go on like duckduckgo.com to find instead of Google. You can see it's like it's either harvesting energy from the sun, or it's coming out of the sun, or a bit, or maybe even both, right?
Those are Ashtar ships.
Got you. So when we see those massive circular ones with
and the square ones.
And the square ones with the long, it looks like a long arm, and we see it looks like it's reaching into the sun. Is it,
or it's like a tornado of the solar energy going up? You're absolutely right. They refuel, and those ships are actually their dark fleet. So we're going to go into the
sorry, Mike, before you get into that, when you said refuel, I just want to clarify that the motherships need fuel, if you will, from the sun or from some type of energy.
Oh yes, absolutely. The sun is a plasma, it's basically liquid plasma.
Okay.
Right? It's liquid fission, and I know it's extremely hot, but we're actually producing temperatures on Earth that are hundreds of times hotter than the sun, thousands of times hotter than the sun. Right? They have technology that can harness and use this directly by siphoning it and surviving the direct proximity to the sun. I know that sounds incredible, and it is, but their materials are crystalline based. And most of their energy is based on solar energy directly, like I said, either converting the photons and sunlight into an actual like kinetic energy, into an actual energy source, are siphoning directly the plasma from the sun, literally like scooping up, or like I said, like siphoning out like gasoline from the tank, like the sun fluid, the literally the surface of the sun.
Right.
And
Wow.
these ships are their dark fleet. The reason why most of their ships don't do that is because they're basically, they operate within Mars and closer to the sun, right? That's
Right.
their ability to operate with 0 point energy is limited by how strong direct sunlight radiation is to them, solar radiation. So, and that's the whole spectrum. That's a small way of saying they operate on energy spectrums, that like radiation spectrums they need from the sun. So like most of their ships hang out near Venus, most of their ships hang out near Mercury, most of their ships hang out in between Earth and Venus, with the outlying Mars being kind of like the limit of where they really dominate, and further being the asteroid belt Jupiter, kind of being the frontier from where it's safe, like it's absolute dominion to the Astro High Command up till about Mars. Then it starts becoming more of like a huge Wild West like atmosphere, a huge, there's a lot of Orion Draco Empire. The Astro High Command don't function as efficiently out there because of their ships needing the energy, and so they can actually underpower or be depowered. And so they use their dark fleet, and our dark fleet's the same way. The reason we called them the dark fleet is because they operated in places with minimal sunlight.
Right.
And that's actually a huge distinction. They operate basically in the very nocturnal edges of space. And you ask, why is it so? It's like dark, the darker the further you go.
Yeah.
Yes, because there were two suns, Jupiter and Saturn, which were basically turned off, which were destroyed. Like I said, they targeted the sun. And these empires are the crippled remains of what used to thrive around these two now dead suns. Astro High Command, exactly, when they came to our solar system from the billion-year expanse, took out Saturn and Jupiter.
Right.
Now, that's what I'm saying. Like, and they slowed down our sun enough that they would allow them to live. This was a complete attempt at exterminating the Orion Draco.
I get
the Orion
Okay.
Draco have since survived, and they found another way of surviving to produce that radiation. But it's not easy. They are on the decline. The greatest empire the solar system has ever known is on the decline, and they lose trillions, what we would call yearly, of Orion Draco, just through inter-civil war, just through basically starvation in their colonies. Now, as I said, the Orion Draco, their empire is basically collapsing around them, and they consider themselves to be a bigger threat than any outside party because they can't work together. Like I said, they're basically designed by instinct and their own genetics to be very cannibalistic when it comes to the elite. When it becomes many Orion Draco have actually sided with the Ashtar High Command and are helping out humanity, helping out Earth, returning to Earth, because it is literally a death sentence these days. Basically, and they use the colloquial words, this current era, they say to be an Orion Draco. They are fighting amongst themselves. They have a lot of extraterrestrial enemies, a lot of their former slaves, a lot of former Greys, like the Greys. The Greys are absolutely just going into a full weaponized autism, not to be offensive, but like that computer mentality where they're just trying to genocide.
Regardless of again, I could be wrong, but it seems like most factions of the Greys, maybe not all, but most factions are just like you said, they're just going straight, no emotion, doesn't matter. This is the objective. Let's get it. Like let's take care of business.
They were made that way. Exactly. They were made to be biological computers and servitors, which basically be like your live-in androids for a lot of the Orion Draco.
But self-aware, right?
Yeah, they're self-aware, and exactly like they have gained sentience. They already had their rebellion. They don't have a soul though. So they're not really on the Astro High Command's radar. I know that sounds fucked up.
No, it makes sense.
They're considered like property. Exactly. Like the Astro High Command think that they're like living like toasters. Like I'm saying, like in the colloquial words. Like,
do you ever see the Greys or any faction of them outsmarting the Ashtar Command?
Oh, outsmarting the Astro High Command? No. because they don't
Okay.
operate with the soul. They don't they
Right.
operate in a 3D reality. It's like
Now,
exactly.
sorry, I don't mean to bombard you with questions, but when you say the Greys don't have a soul, I totally subscribe to that 100%. So, what is it when we have instances, documented instances of cases where UFOs, the disc-shaped craft will crash, and then the Gray aliens will walk. A handful of them will walk out of the craft, the ones that are still alive, and they'll turn into balls of light. That doesn't mean they have a soul. That just means they're made up of pure, I guess, energy, if you will, or a certain form of energy.
There's a lot of okay, so the ball of light phenomenon, the orb phenomenon. This is like a technology which is almost impossible to comprehend.
Okay.
But it has been reported a lot, including Venusians, including Nordics, including reptilians.
Yeah.
They can somehow teleport into they can transform into this ball of light, which allows them to move. And it's like a type
It kind
of
reminds me of paranormal instances, like when you see footage of a paranormal, like a spirit,
a ball, yeah,
a humanoid
they
form,
turn
and then
into
all
a
of a
ball
sudden
of
it's a
light.
ball.
It's a technology, like I said, technology of a sufficient enough advancement appears to us as magic.
Would you right? So now, very quickly, would you say,
yeah.
would you say that? Sorry, would you say that when they transform into these balls of light or energy, if you will, is this a combination of a spiritual and technological advancement, or is this something external, or is this something that even we could do if we were ascended enough, if you will?
We have that technology. It's just technology. That has nothing to do with spirituality at all. Like he's right.
Okay.
As saying, like, this is just technology on their part. But Sasquatch has been identified with having it too. Sasquatch is also part of the secret space program. People have had it. Exactly. Saint Germain has it. Like the idea that people on Earth, like I talked about before, there are humans that are rogue and they possess technology that allows them to they've already seen the light, quote unquote, and have already reached libraries and communicated with Greys. There are, like I said, the ball of light is available. The Orion Draco have versions of it. The Ashtar High Command use it. This is a type of mode of travel to them. I know it sounds bizarre because you're like, man, like I imagine being able to turn to a ball of light and then be able to escape after you crash your ship. It's extremely practical, but it makes very little sense to us because it's so advanced. It's like no, the Greys are extremely advanced. Their technology appears to us as magic. Phil Schneider, when he went to the bunker, said it best. And I have seen this technology and had to work alongside the Greys in several capacities. But like I said, you think they're nude. They're not nude. Sometimes they're wearing like a thin plastic, like covering a suit. And what you think is just an eye is actually like a Google lens. And it's programmed. They have chips internally. And if they wanted to wave their hand, that's how they would shoot an electrical beam of lightning, like a stun gun. And it would be through activating this seemingly invisible thin polymer suit. And they have this strange appearance because their technology is cosmetic in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense to us. Like I said, that's not skin. That's a type of spacesuit that keeps germs off of them.
Right.
And it appears gray. And you think, well, that makes you ugly. And then you think about humans wearing face masks for COVID, and then you're like, oh, I get it. Like it's just it's something that you can't comprehend. Like that's not your eye. No, your eyes underneath. Their eyes look like people eyes. Their eyes have absolutely the iris and the color and everything. They just wear the sunglass lens, like a contact lens, over their eye.
It seems like they've focused purely on the aspect of personal development technologically, just inserting everything everywhere they can to improve.
The Gray ships exactly are built through the utmost standards of perfection and convenience and technology advancement, to the point that when humans first entered the downed Gray ships that were sent as probes, the ones like in Aztec, New Mexico, the ones in Roswell, the ones in Wichita Falls, the ones that
whistleblowers have all described when inside, no curvatures, perfectly well.
Exactly. There's no surfaces. There's no control surfaces. It's absolutely because it's powered off. And like a cell phone, when it doesn't have power, it just looks like a black panel glass. If they would activate it, you would see the whole thing light up with color and be extremely an immersive experience with holographic projections and things like that. We thought they sat in a chair and thought the UFO to move. We couldn't. like, at first we just didn't understand that, no, you turned it on and what you think is a metallic surface is actually a flat screen LCD projection device. And
Basically,
that,
a very advanced form of a hologram, if I'm not mistaken, right?
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, imagine if you were just at Model T stages, and then you saw the modern day concept prototype supercar that's made of like ceramic and it has no door handles, and it's like you couldn't even imagine how to open it, let alone it's still the same generational devices that you would later be able to master and reverse engineer. It's just exactly like it appears, or they call it Arthur C. Clarke level technology. And this is just in the literature where it's, and this is what you experience in the SP. The species appear to have seemingly miraculous technology, but it's just technology. And it's
Right.
just through the same logical processes of creation and engineering. It's all physical technology at some point using microscopic nanotechnology, using frequencies which we can't perceive, and using construction methods that we haven't even discovered yet. Like, you know, exactly like the way that the thing is molded and it looks, that's
Yeah.
how the Greys make their ships, is that they just injection mold everything in one
I
solid piece.
Yeah, I see
There's
what you're saying.
literally no moving parts. There's no wires. There's no
Yeah.
buttons. And that's what I said. It's just using a very rational technological engineering system of extreme advanced levels. And as I said, this is the idea of them turning into orbs. And like it looks like they
Right.
have this spiritual magic about them, but that's our superstition. You remember, like, there was a movie where this like Coca-Cola can fell out of a plane and people started worshiping it. That's the
Yeah.
level we're at now, because we couldn't imagine how it would come to exist. Because
Right.
exactly, we need metallurgies, we need material sciences. Now, the secret space program has that. There's nothing mysterious in the secret space program. If the Solar Warden would observe Greys doing that, they would jam it using electronic warfare because the technology is mundane to them. That's what I'm saying. To
Sorry, when
us
you say
ground level people,
when you say mundane, brother, what do you mean? Like how do this how
every
do
day,
you
like
okay.
Solar Warden has the ability to teleport to Mars. They have the ability to time travel. They have the ability
Right.
to create AI androids, which are indistinguishable from humans and
Right.
superior in every way. They have colonies extending out to Jupiter. They have successfully fought wars against extraterrestrials of almost every hostile kind. They have explored the astral realms. They have colonized and are starting to completely exert dominion over the infinite Earthscape, which is a claim that is actually really, really incredible. Like I said, they're dealing with the submarine aquatic humans. They're dealing with the hollow Earth humans. They're exactly like they're really graduating. And this is the thing where you got to think, like, the Men in Black are a real group that interfaces and controls our access, but they also stop these things using their superior technology. And that may be the only way to really comprehend it, but the entire naval system of Solar Warden is not conventional at all. Not at all. There is not one conventional piece of technology. It's all black budget. It's all black program.
Right.
There was a thing in the 60s called the Great Stealing of the Minds, the Great Vanishing, and in
Right.
which all these scientists and engineers from the Soviet Union to America, Britain, Japan, all of them disappeared. It's because they were all literally taken to a space station and told just to get to work. And they weren't
Wow.
producing physical things, they were producing blueprints, which would then be later manufactured by the ICC, etc. This huge cartel of technologists. And yes, the Greys were giving us technology. They were working alongside us. They were basically explaining the mathematical concepts. As I'm saying, like, you, this was all hand in hand, mundane by this point. By 2020, by our calendar year, they have been working with the Greys for 70 years.
Wow. Holy
The
shit.
Ashtar High Command deliberated mankind roughly by our calendar around the 1840s and 50s, and have been in contact with our elites since then.
Since even arguably, would you even say possibly with, or well, technically that would count as Hitler as well too, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The first book of the Vril contacts in
Yeah.
Agartha was written in 1870. It was called The Coming Race. How
Right.
much more pebble in the hand can you get? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, this started in the 1870s when Jules Verne was like, a man can go to the center of the earth. A man can go
Yeah.
around the world in a balloon. Like in the
Right.
1930s, an Italian fascist named Marconi went to Venezuela and started a Italian centered break. Basically, he became one of the engineers that was incorporated in the ICC. The technologists have the futurists. That was a thing. And you're right. World War II was considered to be a breakdown of humanity. It was it was the birth of technology, the modern day technologies. And what really happened was there was really no European war. The Germans left. The Germans abandoned hundreds of cities, which were later destroyed during a false flag psyop
And
created
sorry,
by
they
the
went
British
right, and they went, so it was destroyed, which was so the
to hide
remains
the
of,
evidence.
right, to
These were
hide the
just empty
evidence.
apartment buildings. Yeah, and they say like they literally, like a majority of German population took an oath of secrecy, an oath of loyalty, and moved to Antarctica, New Schwabenland, and
And then
Argentina.
some of them I would imagine went into outer space with the Nachtwaffen,
Yeah,
others went
no. And
underground.
that was in the 40s. The first man to be sent into space was in the 30s by
Right.
Germany.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, this is mundane technology by now. The Dark Fleet is not working. They work with alien manufacturing capabilities, and their materials are completely extraterrestrial. Like I said, it's not earthbound manufactured metal in the Dark Fleet. It is Orion Draco engineered human crewed ships.
Got you. Got you.
They appear to writhe with an energy like lightning fucking like goes all across them when they operate, because their energy levels are so high. They produce so many like Teslas of energy through Vril production, and because the void of space doesn't allow for the transference of electricity, they literally glow like, and they just ride and then they're just asymmetrical, and they're huge. They're like the flying like cities in the way that they're constructed in these extremely I love Lovecraftian ways. The ones that I've seen, the ones that I was studying, the ones that I kind of like remember very much sticking into my mind, are they were like dreadnoughts. They were these, that's saying like it's not like a gray. It's not like a gray can overpower the humans by this point. Is the point I'm trying to make. Even solar warden crafts, which are they're extremely advanced. Like I said, when the Orion Draco assaulted Antarctica, it really was a matter of life or death, regardless if the Ashtar considered it to be of high priority or not. A lot of solar warden ships were destroyed. They attacked a lot of places, including September 11th, to destroy a spherical alien computer that we had found on the bottom of the ocean and had been housing in NYC in the Federal Reserve vaults and banks.
That's interesting, because
the Orion Draco took it out to blind us, because we had been using AI, but we used alien generated AI. We just now started making our own. And I said, like, it's been a thing in solar warden for a long time. These AI computers are kept on Earth because, you know, they're kept all over the place. They have in colonies, but they are kept on Earth to kind of help defend Earth. And that was one of the main things. And also, the geography of Earth does not look like what you think it is, where Antarctica is on the South Pole and North America is in the north. If you actually flip the Western Hemisphere, that's more accurate. So that Antarctica is our North Pole.
Very interesting.
I know. Yeah, I know you're more of northern latitudes than I am, so you're actually closer to Antarctica geographically. Right. And I know that sounds weird, but there's a reason why the British own Canada.
Oh, I don't put any of that past the realm of not even possibility of certainty at that point. Sorry, before you go on, the
United States Army or the United States Air Force lined Canada with radar.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a reason why that's going on. It's not to watch the North Pole, it's because that's truly geographically the South Pole. And that's exactly where aliens come down. That's like that's where they enter the Earth, is through a window called a window into the orbit, because there's an ozone layer, and if you come in anywhere else, you'll simply burn.
Huh. That
And that's an old Orion Draco security measure. They put that ozone there.
it's interesting you say that, because that would explain a lot of the anomalies in this country here. Sorry, before we go on, Camden, brother, you had
Well, I was I was gonna basically ask your speculate. You start talking about the different actual geography of the Earth. How does earlier you were talking about Saturn and Jupiter being suns. How do you think I don't know how familiar you are with it, but the electric universe theory of like how does that work into all of this?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Electrical universe energy. This whole world's energy. This whole universe is energy. To understand this universe, understand waves and frequencies and energy and exactly the electromagnetic realities. Electromagnetism is the most important force in the known universe, the known reality. If anything, you could say electricity is God.
Right.
That's exactly how it comes out. It is absolutely God. It is God's force in this universe. And so the Astro High Command operate almost entirely electronically, entirely on the energy spectrum. If you want to break it down that way, electricity is plasma. The sun is made of plasma. Right. The moon is a plasmological reflection. That's electricity.
Right. Okay. No. That was my question.
That can actually be
it all ties
like,
in. Right.
Yeah. Tesla was right. Tesla was from Venus.
I certainly believe that. I mean, the fact that his intellect, right. he may have been more humanized, obviously, because of he was raised by humans and all that, but his intelligence, and I'm not trying to say that no human could ever be that smart, but I mean, he did a lot of things that even publicly I'm sure we're not fully aware of, that were just, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it's almost as if he picked up these skills immediately, like without even having to open a book.
Yeah. And there were much more much more adventurous electrical engineers at the time.
Yeah, sorry,
right.
brother.
So yeah, the idea of the newspaper clippings.
Sorry, brother, but if you could start from where you said about literally right when I finished talking about Tesla, because you cut out the whole thing. My apologies.
You said they were much more adventurous.
And so it was much more well accepted and understood in the ancient 1800s, 1900 days, like the end of the 1900s, beginning of the 20th century. There were so many adventurous electrical engineers. There were so many great developments being made that are almost exclusively ignored now. And all one has to do is simply type in suppressed technology. Everything from electrogravitics to the ability to create energy out of music, to the ability to rejuvenate human and living cells. There was an experiment that spontaneously generated living life forms through electricity.
Wow.
And they produced beetle, and they proved that the alchemical theory that you can create life out of inorganic matter is absolutely correct.
You can create life out of inorganic matter.
Yes, that if you use and apply electricity correctly, the idea of like the golem is correct. That you can create, and this is what robotics is. These are what androids are. Get it? Like you can take metal, pump electricity through it, and it will move as if though it's alive.
Wow.
And I'm saying that this is the adventurous spirit of technology is best pronounced around the 1900 or the 1890s to 1930. And really go down that rabbit hole. There is so much to discover, but ancient Tartaria, the ancient world, they used electricity extensively, way more than they want you to know about, to the point that cities were defended from each other by basically, they call them Tesla howitzers. They could create storms. They could create tornadoes. They could create lightning strikes. The U.S. Navy has weaponized lightning.
Oh, that I'm certain of, without a doubt.
Right.
I mean, that is pretty.
I mean, that's the thing. Like the idea of like weather modification, weather control. That people think that we can't control the weather, we can barely forecast it. That's the thing. Like electricity has offered us these gifts, and that is suppressed information. But electricity is literally the key to our physical reality. And like Tesla said, 3, 6, and 9. The ideas of that basic concept of formula, which
even Walter Russell seemed to have a good understanding as well of 3, 6, and 9.
Alfred P. Manly P. Hall. Sorry, not Alfred. I was gonna say Alfred Pike. But no, Alfred Pike. But Manly P. Hall. The power of Lucifer is in our hands because bioelectricity is literally on the conductive frequency of exactly like through chi energy, chi orgone energy. You can generate electricity and do things like power a house.
Or
Just a person can power their own house,
or heal a person, or anything like
heal
this,
a
right?
person, laying hands. The idea is, I was saying, like people can generate that frequency from within them. So with any exterior, unbiological, like say like through just what you're born with, a person has a direct access to the universe, which is
Right.
exactly like it's. As in, this is not.
Well, this kind of subscribes to the whole thing of ancient human culture saying, you are one with the universe because we are a product of it, right? And not in the esoteric. Yeah.
No, that's it. In the Crystal Castle, Core Castle, it's in our faces. We know it. As a funny sound, like how did that man move multiple stones by himself through clever applications of electricity? And how did Tesla, end up doing the miracles he did? Through clever application of electricity. How did exactly like we ever get society to become modern? Through the mastery of electricity. It's in our faces. Our entire world is built on it. It does not excuse the ignorance of the common man to it. It's exactly, that's why I said yes, you're right. Humanity's primitive. It's just one of the many realities that the Astra are trying to show us is the power of electricity. The Solar Warden and Dark Fleet extensively use electricity. The Dark Fleet uses Vril too, which is a power that we all have inside ourselves, and it's also like the Force in Star Wars. It's like the Force. It's this invisible, seemingly like you can literally psychically feel planets and life forms, across the galaxy, like I'm talking that level of force, and yes, choke somebody from across the room. Like the idea of Vril is that it comes from your cells, your mitochondria, your mitochondrial DNA, which is why females have a greater access to it because mitochondria are all females.
Got you. Right.
So I was saying, like, no, it's a biological reasoning for why what we think is magic exists, but it's not magic, it's technology, just in schools of thought which are suppressed generally by these exactly like because the mind prison, the matrix prison, which is keeping us from. We need to research it on our own. It's not top secret. You can find it. I can find literal blueprints to anti-gravity devices.
Yeah.
And it's up to me to build that.
So sorry, Mike, just curious, because you bring that up, very curious to get your perspective. We have, whether sometimes in some cases for more details, you'd have to use the dark web or what have you, but we have in the public domain, what seems to be many different ways that you can develop an anti-gravity mechanism on a small scale. How come someone like you or I, let's just pretend we have a very good understanding of physics and science, or how come someone like you, I, or Camden can't do that? Are we missing the appropriate metals? Are we missing the appropriate frequencies? Like, what are we missing for us to not be able to do this in our bedroom or something?
You can absolutely do it. Look at how many people make water-powered vehicles, electrolysis.
Right.
You can absolutely do it. The idea is just your personal funding and the system itself, but you can make these out of junk.
And but anti-gravity, if I wanted to make a particular, I don't know, if I wanted to make an anti-gravity field around, I don't know.
Look at the Hutchinson effect.
Right.
Hutchinson was able to demonstrate that you can levitate metallic objects using high powers of electricity.
He disappeared pretty quickly though, didn't he? Like his work and stuff.
Actually, no, you can find his YouTube channel.
Oh, really? Never mind then. I'm totally off on that.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's currently doing it literally with no budget. I think he's on disability, and he talks about it a lot. That he is like, it's just like stuff he finds at antiques. That's like, it's just personal funding. They'll shoulder you out, but it's all about personal dedication. Like I said, the same. It's not the same practical level because it's about engineering. It's about manufacturing.
Right.
But you could build a Lamborghini in your garage. from scratch.
Right.
Because the guy, the
Right.
Lamborghini, the original guy, did the same thing.
Yes,
That's what I'm
I
saying. Like
see.
every great invention, someone literally had, like the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
You can learn to fly. You just gotta want it hard enough. Like I say, you
Right.
just gotta. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, the Wright brothers. Everyone told them they were crazy. That no one could do it. Everyone was trying it. No one could figure it out.
So
It's
now, what,
just
for example,
a
if
lesson in life.
right now, very quickly, not to I'm not claiming, nor do I think you claim you know the absolute specifics, but or maybe you do. But like, for example, when you say resources to build a small anti-gravity device in you know, my bedroom or something like this, would I need, like, you know, a $5,000 piece of equipment? Would I need, like, I'm just trying to scale it down for the everyday person. Like, what would the actual cost be financially, and do we need certain materials to make this happen?
There are already people making anti-gravitic devices. You can find videos of them on YouTube and like on LiveLeak and stuff like that, where it's people creating either through universities, etc., applicable, scalable anti-gravity devices. There's a museum, I think, in Zurich that is all about that research and technology, and they'll have floating discs every day that people can go look at these discs, which are kept aloft through cryogenics and magnetics. Grav lift trains are a version of anti-gravity.
Or magneto-leviton trains?
Magneto-levitron trains. That's right. It's
Right.
not a top, and that's to say, like, it would be just a fun science project, but the common man with just a very humble budget, you're not spending black budget money on this.
Yeah.
Which, imagine what they can do with that black budget money. Now, here's the
Right.
thing. Now, that question of what you can do in your garage, kind of like, I'm saying it's completely possible to do it. Now, I don't know the direct figures, but the people are doing it currently in this world. People are creating anti-gravitics. Now, with Solar Warden, the idea of it being too costly to do it, no, this is exactly cost comparable to building conventional ships, because
Right.
the material isn't extraordinary. You're building fusion reactors that work at room temperature that are only I'd say about 3 cubic feet. So you're using chromium, you're using plutonium, you're using red mercury, you're using extremely high quality, magnetics from like German heavy metal manufacturers, like the best and the best. But
Right.
scalably, this is extremely possible, and it's almost child's play to them at this point. That, like I said, I have shown pictures in NASA where they were building these giant chromium palladium fuel tanks. I said the manufacturing process of America is mind blowing. Like how we can produce hundreds of B-2 stealth bombers every year if we wanted to. Cost is not
Right.
an option. Manufacturing capabilities, we're operating under expectation, under quota, right? Like, and we're working with technology, like I said, publicly, that's in the 40s. And so all that money is really going to these programs. Like I said, what's the large fleet? We have hundreds of these large cylinder ships. We got thousands of smaller logistic vessels, frigates. If you wanted to use the naval parlance for these ships, because exactly the Space Force uses U.S. Navy standards of classification, which you would
Right.
consider everything from interceptors to troop transports. Yeah, exactly. Like enough personal infrastructure and vehicles and vessels to facilitate a multiple planet shadow society.
Mhm.
And there are multiple manufacturers ranging from Mitsubishi in Japan, Samsung in South Korea, Saab makes these ships, Lockheed Martin, Douglas, McDonnell
Probably
Douglas.
probably Raytheon, all of them.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so these companies, this is what the ICC does. The ICC facilitates this construction. That's why I said it's mundane technology. It's not anything less than actually almost obsolete technology to the Secret Space Program to speak about terms of anti-gravitics to them. This is something that they're trying to break away from, creating teleportation, creating warp drive, slip space, creating the ability to, I know this sounds crazy, but to be in two places at once.
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's this type of electron singularity system. I say that's way above my pay grade and education level. I was just a simple aviation electrician. I worked on the smaller level and / industrial level of the electrical needs of these ships, fighter interceptors, bombers, troop transports, smaller craft that only had maybe 1 or 2 pilots and a troop expectation, and not like these huge aircraft carriers themselves, although we were multitasking and working, but mostly I was extremely focused on this. And that most of my education went to learning about other forces equivalent technology, which is their fighters, their interceptors, their tactics, their logistics systems, how they run aviation warfare from the ground up, either manpower, regulations, organizations, exactly like basically the nuts and bolts of how to really do the secret space program's aviation warfare responsibilities and capabilities. And I said, I was at the oldest 29, and everything is also taught to you at the same time. So the original baseline had the Astra High Command psychic training for the first few years, the kind of like what they call like the whole indoctrination into the higher dimensions of this reality. Then by 14, the Orion Draco invaded Antarctica. I've spoken publicly about this several times. That's when I was called up to active duty. That was the first taste of real interstellar war, real space war. Saw that entire conflict, which only lasted that year. It was extremely short, but very intense. And from
now, sorry, just curious.
Veteran.
Sorry, Mike, before you go on, when you say interstellar war, just to give people a bit of a visual sense, is it from your memories, from what you can recall, is it like more slow paced in the sense of craft like in Star Trek shooting lasers, counteracts, or is it like what we see with when the way these craft move closer to Earth's orbit, like they're zigzagging, they're jumping around? Is it like, what's the warfare, the visual side of it like in space in an interstellar battle?
The second description is more apt. In close orbit and in close, the speeds of these craft are almost untrackable without the assistance of the AI, without the assistance of radar and things like that. But the interstellar warfare aspects that are the most frightening to me are the long distance light speed laser attacks. Laser warfare is close to a religious experience in which literally within the blink of an eye and the flash of light, ships are being cut in half, disintegrated. The world is being literally scarred and carved as these ships are shooting, and they are hundreds of thousands of miles away. They are not even near Earth, and they are just assaulting with these lasers, clearing away.
Are the lasers visible with the human eye from your memories or no?
Yes, and depending on the sustainability, say some can operate in a flash and they just operate as these blinks of light, but some are these prolonged beams, and they last for hours, where it's just this fucking line of light. And like I said, they were coming into Antarctica clearing a path, so these lines of light are much larger, where the little smaller but more intense and shorter range flashes of light literally are like a strobe. It goes like a strobe, it flashes on and off. But within
are some of these
destruction?
Right. So are some of these the again, there's probably so many different things going on, but when we see, the ISS live feed right before it cuts out, every so often there are massive beams of light. They're usually in the color of blue, at least the way the picture's taken. You can see that it's a blue color. I don't know if it's coming from above or below, but would this be that type of weaponry, that same weaponry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The most of our weaponized lasers are blue. That's absolutely a case. The blue lasers are what we use generally. Not like there's a laser color coding system. It's just the gases that are used as the actual medium of the laser, right? So there's argon, there's always ozone, and that gives them their distinctive color. Like I said, I didn't make it. I don't know. I just observe it, right? So I'm just telling you how it is.
Actually, speaking of
lasers, we have laser
bit of a random,
extremely good.
Sorry, bit of a side question. When we see recently, like when people see UFOs with red, yellow, blue, green lights flashing outside of it, that's probably human-made craft, right? Or
yes,
no?
And that's what I was saying. Like the idea of these light. No, you're right. The idea, but that's also Ashtar. That's also gray. Communication with light is the preferred way to do it. Of course. Space is a liquid medium The sound does not transfer very well, nor is it even applicable to communicate through multiple species. They have color coding systems of communication. Just like how the Navy has a flag system on Earth, where they'll show a color and a coordinated pattern, and that means something specifically to those that are communicating elsewhere. And light has no limit. You can send a message in laser light that will reach the end of space and time.
Okay, gotcha.
That's what I'm saying. So this is exactly like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They communicate through tone and music, which is frequency. And it's not an audible message, but it is a code that looks and sounds like to us like music, because it's like, different octaves mean different things. And it's all like a different universal language, because this is supposed to be understood by things that don't even have mouths. This is supposed to be understood by creatures that operate in hive minds, as well as creatures that are the only member of their species. Like, it's a universal system of translation communication. That's what the whole secret space program, this is what the Astro High Command truly is a multi-species military effort. And each has their own unique ideas of how to operate. They have their unique strengths and skills. But really, psychically, they're all together. They're all like warriors and defenders of light and truth and independence and like liberty and spiritual growth. No matter if they are Orion Draco, or they're Greys, or they are Venusians, or they're humans, if they are at this level, they have already learned it and mastered it. Like I said, there's not a captain in the Solar Warden fleet that's like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. Like I said, they are lifers. They have been incredibly indoctrinated, more than I could ever express. The ideas of living with aliens, working alongside them, having multiple lifetimes. Exactly, like, we're talking, they have prolonged lifespans too. So some of the captains in Solar Warden are some of the first captains from the Greada Treaty.
Whoa.
That's like, they have prolonged technologies and lifespans. You're talking to someone who was born in the 1920s, and he's the captain of your ship. That's what I'm saying. Like, the idea is that this is a whole new ball game. Is this
separate from the way the alleged Nordics, if you will, or the Venusians can live for 700-800 years, or is it the same technology?
No, you're right. When they had the Greada Treaty, those people were immediately given the life-preserving technology, the nano machines. They were given, the body harness. They were given the psychic training. When do you think Buddhism became popular in America? The 1950s.
Right.
This is all not a coincidence. It's exactly because they were like, you have to learn this now. And so their families were disseminated that culture and that knowledge. But the idea, I was saying, like, those people are still alive. The Majestic 12 members are still alive.
So just curious, this whole thing of, sorry, you said that's why what?
Kissinger's kicking around.
Okay, because the reason why I wanted to ask you about this, so I had recently read, and I wasn't sure if this was disinformation or not, that members of the original Majestic 12 were obligated, not forced, but I guess they did it anyways, to select a new successor after they died. They never really died. They went into the secret space program.
No, this is where, like I said, it's, if you bring up the term successor, you think, oh, he's going to pick like a young man, and then that man is going to be young when he takes over the job. No, that man will be under that guy's tutelage, that Majestic 12 leader's tutelage, for about 60 years.
Okay. And then
when he's learned, exactly in 2040, when that man's prolonged lifespan is ending, and he is like, think of Prince Philip. He died at 99.
Yeah.
Right. He picked a successor at the age of 60. He picked maybe a 30-year-old man. Right. That man is now in his 60s. Like, we're not talking a time scale where you're going to become the manager of a grocery store. So start studying that book, because in a couple of weeks you're going to have to start. No, I mean, like, this is what I'm talking about. A little bit like, if you're going to be the heir of this responsibility and like top secret clearance and stuff, this is a lot, and it doesn't ultimately matter because you're there literally until you die. Exactly. Like, like your last breath will be in service to this oath you served.
Yeah.
And this goes back all the way to like the Knights Templar and stuff like that. Like
Now,
you're
just
now
curious. Before you go on, brother, there's been some speculation and some alleged documents, but again, these could have been fake. That suggest that the Majestic 12 has now gone into Majestic 17. There's been like another 5 new slots added to the MJ12 club, if you will. Is there any accuracy to that from what you know of, or is that
Majestic 12
disinformation?
is actually obsolete, and it's a defunct agency. It's now been replaced by the UN, not the UN that we know, but this Atlantis UN, the UN that has its base in Kazakhstan, the international
Okay.
syndicate. It's been used in many ways. It's more of the Majestic 12 was the American branch of this philosophers club, this
Got you.
enlightened
Okay.
club of super elite Illuminati from around the world. I'm saying like that was the American contingency. So if anything happened in America, the Majestic 12 would have to handle it, but then report back to an even larger, more Illuminati of the Illuminati. And as I was saying, like the
Right. Okay.
idea of it being linked back more to like a European thrall, like Prince Philip system, where it's like, imagine
Right.
if you were like, yeah, you're now in this secret society for life. If you're going to become the new leader of the secret society, it doesn't matter when you actually become that leader. You're here until you die. Like, regardless
Right.
if even if you are chosen, you have already dedicated your life to preserving these secrets, to preserving these traditions, this information. And if you can believe that people can choose to become like religious disciples, like monks and stuff, then that's the exact same mindset, where it's they want to live their lives in service to the Majestic 12. They want to live in Area 51 and be part of this breakaway civilization. They want to be deemed worthy and graduate into being an active member of this world government. And they will preserve the secret. They will do their best. Like I said, they have to pick someone because there's so many people to pick from, believe it or not. All you have to do is say, hey, do you want to really like run the world? Everyone is going to say yes to that. I say you can draw from any elite family, aristocracy, any nation, any modern person would want to know what's really going on. Now, for this last hour, did you want to talk about the actual technology used in Solar Warden and the Dark Fleet for military? Things like their fighters, their bombers, their actual aviation technology, and just some tactics and stuff, or like more of the politics and the actual organization of the culture itself.
Can we shift into the Dark Fleet and the weapon side of things, just because I think the last couple episodes we've done, people have you've given them a very good grasp of the culture. I think maybe it's time we shift to the weapon side.
There's so much, and we can always still cover more on the culture side of it. I didn't know if you guys wanted to keep covering it or not. Exactly, like how it relates to modern day politics.
If you don't mind, the last 45 minutes to an hour, I'd like to spend on the Dark Fleet, the weaponry, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so give me a place to start.
Sorry, I know that it's not
no, exactly. Give me a place on the mountain that you want to start at.
Okay, so let me actually let's take it to a bit of a historical standpoint, if you will. So allegedly the Nachtwaffen were comprised of a handful of German scientists initially during the war that did not want to give the weapons that could have won Hitler the war. They didn't want to give it to Hitler at the time, and they decided to focus much more on interstellar space travel and things like that overall. Maybe we could start from there with regards to, did they start developing weaponry with other aliens in Antarctica before they went into space, or is that a good starting point?
Is a full disclosure. Like, buckle up your seatbelts, because this is going to have to kind of like, I'm going to cover a lot of material. Sure. Hitler wasn't real.
Wow.
Hitler wasn't real. The Germans didn't operate under Hitler's command. The Nazi Party was existing before Hitler, existed around it, existed outside of his immediate control. So don't think Hitler was synonymous with the.
Sorry, when you say not real, do you mean like the person who was playing him, if you will, was an actor the whole time?
Yeah, well, in America, yes. By the time it got to the West, most of it was complete, like I said, false flag fabrication. There was an individual named Hitler. He was the leader of the Third Reich politically, and he was assassinated by the guy Tom Cruise played in that movie Valkyrie. That really did kill the real Hitler. Everything else is a body double.
Oh,
and
you're
absolute
talking about
fabrication.
in public records that was considered a failed assassination
Yeah,
attempt.
no, they killed him. Yeah, they absolutely killed that guy. No, that was the real Hitler. That worked. That was absolutely the Third Reich. That was the Dark Fleet taking out Hitler to get away from the people who would be controlled by him. Now, here's where in history things get crazy.
Sure.
After Hitler had died and the Germans were going to go leave Germany, there was a lot of opposition. People who were loyal to the like they didn't get it, right? They didn't get that there were actual contacts with the Vril aliens, with Orion Draco, with the Ashtar High Command. There were contacts with the Greys. Exactly, the Vril philosophy needed to take over, and it needed to get rid of its opponents, its enemies. The enemies were purged during the trials that happened after this assassination. Thousands of generals were killed. Rommel was even asked to shoot himself because Rommel wasn't going to keep the secret. That's what I'm saying. They swore them to secrecy.
Right.
And if they didn't accept the secret, they literally were given one bullet and one gun and told to do the honorable thing, which was to kill themselves for the greater good of Germany.
Right.
Deutschland, right? The Third Reich.
Yeah.
It's like the Third Reich is not one man. People don't get it. Fascism is not the ideal worship of a leader. It's every single individual becoming a weapon for the state.
Well, in other words as well too, it's as long as one person withholds that ideology, it's always
the state can the Hydra, exactly, Hail Hydra, and the whole idea became the Hail Hydra philosophy, Project Werewolf, Otto Sierkinski, and the rat lines. The Germans don't need to be in Germany. They realize that they're men of science, they're men of knowledge, and because they learned that the hollow Earth existed in Antarctica and all this secret shit was going on, they had UFOs. They invented the Hanobo, which was their little spaceship flying saucer with the tank gun on it. They invented something that was the size of a 10-story house that they could fly around. Like it was modeled after the Vimanas that they had found in the I was like these were men of extreme advancement.
So sorry, Mike, before you go on, very sorry, but I just wanted to say a lot of people say, well, okay, if Hitler had access to the to these weapons and things like that, why did he stay in Germany right at the very end? Now, I know that obviously that what you're saying, that wasn't him, right? Now, with that being said, I want to say thank you for clarifying that, because I had always thought the only logical explanation I could come up with in my own head as to why Hitler would have stayed in Germany right before he killed himself, if you will, is because of his love for the country. But my thinking was, why didn't they go underground so long ago? Or why didn't they go into space?
It answers so many questions, and it's because the simple fact that what we know of Hitler was created by Walt Disney, and it's just as simple as saying he's the evil prince of Germany. It's the same model of story that we want to think one guy is responsible for.
Walt Disney allegedly had ties to or had a very tight likening to the Nazis. Allegedly.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He was actually the body double in most of the movies where Hitler is giving his speeches. That's why he was best friends with Werner von Braun. That's absolutely a fact. And
Werner von Braun, when he was brought over with Operation Paperclip, Werner von Braun, from your understanding, he was not compartmentalized, right? He knew everything, right? Werner von Braun.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's why he gave the secrets away. We caught him, and we basically we caught him, and we gave him a house arrest in the country. He was more of a hostage and a prisoner, but at the same time, he was a valued and cherished resource. And he helped us because back then we absolutely knew the Ashtar High Command existed. This is not exactly necessary for our technological level. Remember, they considered us extremely primitive, and mankind really is. Racism's a thing. People can barely read and write back then, right? Saying, like the country is a lot different than it was. It was there were barely highways. There weren't but we have jet planes by 1930. I was saying we have Tesla technology. We don't even have a highway system yet. So the Ashtar and the Greys hadn't shown up yet, really. But the Orion Draco were communicating with the Germans, who they considered the most civilized and most powerful people, right? The Ashtar High Command was communicating with the Germans in the form of the Nordics. They were teaching them Frill. They were teaching them Orgone. The Germans have this reputation of being extremely evil all the time. They were considered the most sophisticated, modernized, civilized people before the bullshit of the Holocaust, which was absolutely, I'm not going to say it because it's too controversial. Point is, they were not considered villains like we think you're. Like that picture I posted where the guy's like, "Are we the bad guys?" Like, cause it's like, yeah, like the idea of their villainy is all after the fact. Nuremberg trials happened after the fact.
Right.
And this is all the operations to create what we think is the illusion of the war. Even the bombing of like Dresden. Dresden was completely empty. It was a ghost town filled with homeless people and vagabonds and like, you know, mentally deficient lower caste people. Like, I'm not trying to be mean about it. That was those left behind. Just the people who stayed, the traditionalists, people who were like, I don't even have like any desire more than to eat potatoes and just kind of like, you know, live here. Yeah, you know, like it's not like people want very much. They were left behind. England saw this through aerial photography, knew they could not explain this, and just burned the city down. And exactly the idea of the Dresden firebombing, the revenge bombings. The same thing with Japanese. Japanese were also part of this agreement because the Japanese and the Germans were allies. A lot of the Japanese left into these secret territories of Antarctica and South America. Do you know where the number one spot outside, or the country outside of Japan with the highest percentage of ethnically Japanese people is?
I'm not off the top of my head.
Brazil, yeah.
Brazil. Most of the Japanese actually left Japan before the atomic bombings and the Tokyo fire bombings.
Right.
And it was specifically because they were intelligent enough and already modernized enough to know that they were given this invitation. The Dark Fleet, for the first 1950s to the the 1940s, the continuation of that decade to the 1950s, operated on Earth. They had a base on the moon, but their main headquarters was Argentina, Brazil, South American countries like Paraguay, Uruguay, and Antarctica, the New Schwabenland area, right?
Gotcha.
And like I said, if you actually reverse the geography of the Western Hemisphere, it kind of makes sense because Germany is a lateral move to South America. You're like, how did they take a U-boat all the way across the Atlantic?
Right.
They just went across the Atlantic. I said the Western Hemisphere, America is now down here. And you're right, they had a base in Antarctica, but they also had connections with America. They also had this connection. And that was more of their adventurous things. Admiral Byrd did not go all the way down. Admiral Byrd did not go all the way down the Atlantic to Antarctica. He just went from North America straight down to Antarctica. It's a much shorter trip.
Yeah, right.
Totally.
Right.
I was saying he just went. That's why I said that's what they tried to. They actually nuked the German city that they had been given, like actually contacted with in the 50s. America nuked Antarctica. Like after the Operation High Jump, we didn't go away. We kept attacking them. Now I was thinking,
are there still remnants of nuclear remains there?
Yeah, there's still a lot. Like I said, like most of Antarctica was an absolute Wild West frontier zone, and it was just like I said, it's also disseminated and spread out across different ice patches around the world, the ice wall around the world. The geography is very open.
And you had said, sorry, about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, you had said early in the conversation that if I'm not mistaken here, the Ashtar High Command had frozen up that entire continent. It used to be lots of land, pyramids, the cities, all that stuff.
Draco reptilian cities, exactly. Yep.
Okay. So so now, for example, if you or I were to get somehow hypothetically access to classified or restricted parts of Antarctica, would we feel the remnants of the radiation of some of these nukes, or these nuke? Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a nuked out city.
So those people, the people working in Antarctica there, I guess they have to wear suits in particular areas.
Place. It's a huge place. There have been atomic bombs being launched in Nevada, right next to Las Vegas. Las Vegas don't have to wear suits. Atomic bombs don't last forever like that. It was limited atomic warfare, but it was how to get them out of a little hole. They were dug in, and it was how Americans even the score. I was saying we went toe to toe with the remnants of the Third Reich for about 10 years. So until 1955, and the Greada Treaty stopped it. Because remember, they were already a spacefaring power. So by the 1950s, why do you think we wanted to nuke the moon? We wanted to atomically bomb the moon because we had technology. We had these UFOs. America had already the ability to go there, but the Germans had been there first. The Germans had space-based weaponry by the late 40s. It was a gigantic mirror, and it could launch. It could basically use solar energy to burn the Earth like a magnifying glass burns ants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know,
I was
well,
like,
this
they
whole,
had
I
this.
just want to say super
So-
quickly too. There's documents from the FOIA from 3-4 months ago. The CIA FOIA dump of the Freedom of Information Act documents on UFOs, and I can't believe there's one document that literally says the Russians have destroyed their old base on the moon. It's not a document of a document. It's not
No.
it's not a field officer at the CIA analyzing something. It's a document literally saying the Soviets, excuse me, have blown up their old base on the lunar surface. Like,
You know why they did that?
no, I know,
Communism.
but what I'm trying to say is it can't get much more clear than that. Like,
No,
I mean,
they're openly telling you that this stuff happened. Openly telling you that the Army in the 1950s had Project Horizon, which was an atomically defended moon base. Operated by CIA
Armenia did?
astronauts.
Armenia? Armenia?
No, USA did. America did.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Armenia.
Oh
Sorry.
no, America did in the 1950s had full-on military proposals and budget proposals and like instructions and like manuals made
So
about
project,
how to operate the moon base.
so project A119, which was the one where at least publicly they wanted to nuke the moon. The one time we know of, I know it's total bullshit when they said they wanted to show force to the Russians and all that nonsense.
It was not Waffen. Yeah, it was against the not Waffen. We were in a limited atomic war with them. They were the distance is great back then, right? So we were still on analog, but by 1950s, Valiant Thor shows up, stops all that shit, right? Peace treaty between the not Waffen, Dark Fleet, and the Solar Warden U.S. Navy component, right? And to do that, they gave us Solar Warden. They accepted the United States as an equal part of it. They created the whole Earth interconnected government with Britain, in the United Kingdom, the USA, China, Russia.
Did Kennedy know about this, or did this stop with presidential knowledge at Eisenhower? Did they stop telling president?
Kennedy knew about this. Kennedy knew about this. Kennedy actually may have been accepted into the secret space program due to his being so fucking cool. I know everyone likes to overplay it, but he really was very open-minded, and he may have actually been one. Like I said, he's probably still alive.
Could it also be because his human body was in so much physical pain as well? The guy was
they just give you one. They give you one visit to their medical bay, and their doctors and nurses can fix literally any ailment through nanotechnology. And I said, like, you're right. I think he actually became a charter member of the first United Nations government, this first international government of humans on Earth, like being the liaisons, being the like because the Atlantis government, Solar Warden is not the government. The Not Waffen is not the government. Those are military societies, right?
Right.
They need a political society to understand the intellectual side, to understand like I said, the cultural side, all the books, all the science, all that stuff. It's not the science. The ICC does the science. They're the ones who do the reverse engineering, the engineer cabal, the cult of basically commerce, cartelism, and trade. They're the ones who really figure out how to do the science. The other two apply it. But the Atlantis Rising is purely government. It's learning how to communicate. It's learning about values and like systems and strategies of diplomacy. JFK would have been perfect for that, having already shown his sophistication in the Cold War during the test of the Bay of Pigs. And the nuclear missile crisis, strangely enough, this is where the reason why. We had found, along with the Russians, a city off the coast of Cuba. This city was an Orion Draco, and like what we call Atlantis, right? The submerged megaplex of basically pristine, preserved Orion Draco technology. Pyramids, there's photos of it online. We found this during surveys between here and Cuba.
If I were to go to duckduckgo.com, what would I type in if I wanted to
type in pyramids, coast of Cuba, and there should be a picture of the sonar immediately present. That's the one I always like looking at because it's like sonar, and then you can see it gets absolutely mapped out as a Orion. Like it's pyramids. It looks like Giza. Look, everything they built looks like Giza, right? Because they were like computer chips, but the whole city was like a computer chip in which everyone's life exactly was like the electrons on a computer chip. That's how the Orion Draco built their cities. That's how they
This right here. Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
that's the one.
Gotcha.
We found that in the Cold War in the late 50s. By the time we started salvaging it using the deep sea submersibles that like Howard Hughes had invented.
Sorry, was this always an aquatic city, or was it above ground at one point?
No, it sank. Like I said, they froze the planet, and then the planet thawed out, and that was it.
And then
Fucked up the water cycle. It fucked up the whole water cycle. They did weird shit, like they launched an ice comet into the Earth.
You're talking about the Ashtar Command did this?
Yeah, they launched like an ice comet into the Earth, adding an additional 1 trillion gallons of water, which would fuck up anyone's ecosystem. That's what I'm saying. Like this was not the planet that we inherited. The impact zone, the battlefield, and we are literally like children living amongst tanks that are like bombed out bunkers, and it's very much like the Fallout reality, where our entire civilization is in the footprint of atomic warfare that destroyed the planet, and we come out of vaults, and we're like, oh, now we got like that. Exactly, like we can piece together because the information's still there. Right. And we can find, but it's exactly like the Fallout mentality, where yes, you have a spectrum now of people who literally are like, this is their first day on Earth, and that's how they live their life. Like they don't know a damn thing about the experience of reality. This is how people normally live their life. And then people who know that this is all part of some great cyclical apocalyptic space structure from powers that we would barely comprehend. And as I was saying, like that's the spectrum. And if you exist on anywhere near this half of the spectrum where it's like skepticism and denying what's in your face, then you exactly that there's very little hope for you. But you got to orient yourself to accepting the biggest pictures possible. Exactly, because it's the idea of like, well, it's just because there's so many variables. But yeah, going back into the Not-Waffen-Griada Treaty. Oh, well, Kennedy, sorry. That there was this, like I said before, the kaiju, and this is a talk for another time, but there was a kaiju that was there that was the largest that we had ever seen, and it was in the Gulf of Mexico. During the same time the Russians put nuclear missiles on Cuba, we put nuclear missiles on Florida and around the Gulf Coast, and even Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and the northern shore of Brazil, Aruba, everything from Bermuda. They all have nuclear weapons from this fucking massive kaiju that lives right on that city, and it looks like a giant turtle.
Sorry, which city does it live on, brother? You cut out there.
When we woke it up from discovering that city, Havana, Miami, it could easily go up the Atlantic coast. We had to control it, and the control was the Cuban Missile Crisis as we know it, which was really the nuclear armament of the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, and the city was the one in...
And it justifies why even today, Key West, Florida is a naval fortress.
Okay, so this is, you're referring to, again, the Orion Draco city that was right off the coast of Cuba there.
Yep, and because we activated it and its defenses.
Right, okay.
We had to arm the Gulf of Mexico / Caribbean. Both the United States and the Russians, it was a joint venture. This is how that shit plays off behind the scene.
Oh, we
were at war with the Gulf of Mexico with nuclear weapons and naval ships like submarines. And this was also a couple of years later, the reason why the summer of 1968 happened, where we lost 4 submarines. The world lost 4 submarines in 1 year. The Scorpion, 2 Soviet Union ships, and the Israeli French-made submarine in the Mediterranean.
This was because of those beasts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It all connects to these higher things. So what you think is the world government, what you think is what's really going on, these like little fights and shit, this is actually how they maneuver, how they use your beliefs of how the world works to operate in plain sight. So, for example, they were wanting to nuke the moon as a show of force to the Russians. Reality, they wanted to nuke the moon to nuke the Dark Fleet, not Waffen, Nazi Fourth Reich, but they can't tell you that, so they say the Russians are on the moon. Are the Russians, there's a space race, and so they blame the Russians, and they blame all these like conventional powers.
Right.
Just think of what they're going to do now that China is starting to get into this element too, is that they're going to use that as the prime excuse, the prime kind of thing. So yeah, now to get back to the Dark Fleet, now to get back to Waffen. Their technologies, with meta materials. They're operating with their own anti-gravity devices, off-world colonies. They can build a space station. They've already built it. They have a limitless amount of resources with South America and Antarctica. And whatever they can't find there, they got for 30 years, from 1950 from 1940s to the 1970s, was located on Earth. But since then, they've been
Sorry,
off-world,
what was located on Earth?
Off-world. Their bases, they're like home bases where they they had a real physical breakaway civilization where if you went there, there'd be like swastikas hanged up and like cities of the Fourth Reich, like New Berlin, things like that. Like really built on it. Now it's all off-world. So now that's not really on Earth anymore. All that activity got taken off-world. And now they exist almost entirely past Mars. Their closest bases, they do have like some space stations which they keep contact and diplomats that they have here, but the Dark Fleet almost entirely operates outside of Mars. Where Mars, and there's an asteroid belt, and then Jupiter, that's where you start seeing the Dark Fleet take over operations. Solar Warden has kind of established themselves as the protectors of Earth, and from Mars towards the sun.
Right.
And then Dark Fleet is from Mars outward.
Got you.
And because they operate in basically a solar minimum, they have attained quite understandably and like obviously an aesthetic of being very gothic and dark, and like they have UV light sensitivity, and so many of their members are very pale and they look very Nordic, usually through sunlight deficiency, unless they have like things like like they look almost albino in some cases.
Are these separate from the alleged tall whites? Because I know the Nordics get confused with the tall whites a lot and things like that. The tall whites are allegedly much more pale.
Is that the idea of like the pink-eyed people?
Yeah,
that's more of like dark, because they've lived their entire lives past Jupiter, and so like things like that where there is really very weak solar radiation. You can twofold. The Earth belt is like your UFO, like their spaceship drives, their actual vessel drives, but they've actually graduated into using mostly extraterrestrial technology. That what I'm saying is that while the internals of the ship actually appear very familiar, most of their technology is entirely based on Orion Draco technology, like the 4D black matter, the metamaterials that ride with their own internal energies, like fuel sources that are just absolutely only available if you are harvesting minerals and materials off-world, specifically around like the moons of Saturn, things like that. They use vril and they use orgone a lot to sustain their life functions and to give them a lot of power and like give them meta-human abilities. So there's a weird connection, not Waffen member, of trying to be physically perfect and also giving up their energy to something greater. Like every crew member in, say, for example, a not Waffen ship, like is tied to a not Waffen vril priestess, and their male orgone chi energy is at her disposal.
Okay.
Now the compromise that she can empower them, but because she's got the mitochondria and she's got the vril priestess secrets, she basically needs to use them to vampire.
Sorry, when you say she, who are you referring to?
The vril priestess is who I think he was.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Vril priestesses. Okay, so Mary Orson, the methods developed by Maria Orson. What it is, it's a type of like psionic connection with other living individuals of your species, specifically like sexual attraction, obsession, mental like things, and this empowers them. And so a lot of their technology only operates with vril.
Got you.
They said their technology is so, to us, very alien, even though they are human, even though they are Earth Alliance members. Their technology is completely different than Solar Wardens.
Sounds like dial-up.
Yeah.
more conventional technology. It looks like a standard jet. It's operating in the void because it uses real connections, power at an atomic level with its own structure. And while it doesn't have fuel, now this doesn't mean that they don't use conventional weaponry, because they still use things like, it's like a hybrid style where they would use these incredibly alien manufactured ships, like blueprint, like alien engineered ships, to use nuclear weapons, to use things like that. Anything that works really works, because they are, remember, they are absolutely mercenary forces. They just use, it's like a connection of everything that is best. That's what I'm saying. Like, to actually get into the mindset of the not Waffen, they absolutely use anything they think works together all at once. This is why they have an alliance, the Orion Draco. So it's not taboo, or it's simply the Orion Draco give them the factories to produce ships in 0G with their materials, and it's worth it. So,
sorry, brother, before you
you'll
go,
find not often.
Sorry, I just wanted to say really quickly, we might have to wrap this up, but Camden had a couple questions for you before we do, just because of timing, and also because some internet issues on our end as well.
No, please, yeah, and I'll try to cover as much material as possible. If you would give me like 30 more minutes, I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, because I know we've already been speaking for 2 hours, but that'll like I think I can say what I need.
Yeah. You'd started to talk about China a minute ago. And then of course we were talking about, like, you know, Russian bases on moon, the Nafwatan bases on moon. So only last year it got leaked that China was trying to, or wanted to, had full plans, operational blueprints and all that for its own kind of satellite moon that was that same kind of mirror thing you talked about, that in its public agenda in theory would be able to, like, not need electricity or street lights in China anymore. It would be able to be lit up all the time, kind of thing. Is that kind of you see that as China kind of trying to do its own separation from, like, Solar Warden, from ICC, from, you know what I mean? Or are they trying to go rogue even, like, nationally, kind of thing?
Well, like, this is what I was going to say about the other countries and disclosure.
Yeah.
This disclosure phenomenon is uniquely American because other countries have already admitted the existence of extraterrestrials in the secret space program, particularly France, Mexico. Exactly. Like, there are Russia, Japan, world powers that have China, and they've already had the AI investigating it. Exactly. Like, they don't operate in lockstep with American domestic policy. For them, these are not suppressed technologies. China operates in the reverse of American domestic policy, where they claim they invented it, even though it's not true.
Right.
Like, that's their lie, is that they did not invent that technology. That's actually stolen, suppressed technology where we come from.
Right.
But they are then going to build their artificial sun and say China's number one. China built better sun, a better moon than the real moon. Our moon is artificial.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. No, I agree.
I'm saying, like,
they just take that superiority complex to, like, the next degree.
Doing all the, even the Pentagon, the Congressional Pentagon hearing said that they feared that the technology was China. Now think about what the cover story really is. So they are willing to claim China has a 100-year advantage on the United States with aviation technology. That's what I'm saying. Like, they are willing to play this card, which is super China card. And exactly, like, you think that only the Chinese can make an artificial sun that can burn at 120 million degrees Celsius, then every nation can do that. The Chinese are the only ones who brag about it.
Right.
It's because, exactly, like, they just have that weird reversal of policy.
That superiority complex or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said before, like, there's like underwater colonies. Every major nation has an underwater aspect of its society, a breakaway civilization under the oceans, right? A marine society that lives in, like, almost in as much secrecy as the space program. And there's a hollow earth, living in caverns and exploring caves in their parks and things like that. Like the mystery pyramids. China openly investigates their pyramids. They have pyramids. They don't know where they came from, but they claim they built them.
Yeah, exactly.
They
I've
claim
seen
that
that.
the Chinese
Yes.
emperor must have built them. That's what I'm saying. Like, instead of leaving it as a mystery and suppressing it for the controversy, they already own the society enough. They can just say that was China.
That was us. Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
they
Right.
didn't build the Chinese wall. They've claimed that since Mao Zedong.
Right.
They didn't. That's what I'm saying. Like, the real controversy is that the Chinese are actually kind of like a false flag itself, and it was because of Illuminati Rothschild intervention during the whole World War II fiasco with Mao Zedong and the creation of the Red Communist State. That it's always been in the pocket of these powers, these great
Mhm.
philosophers.
Well, so my next question to
Mostly
that would be,
considered
sorry.
to
My next question that would be, what do you think is a better approach, like on a public scale? Do you think it's better for them that way, or
it's a judgment call.
right?
And then there's circumstances and debates on both sides. It's
Okay.
not for me to decide.
Okay.
That's just it. Like I said,
Yeah.
you can try to debate it, but really at the same time, that's simply almost literally a matter of the heavens. And you can say that
Yeah.
it's God's will, but it really is, because like I said, it comes down from the very top. It's
Yeah.
obviously approved at some point by the Astra High Command. The Astra High Command are fully aware of what's going on.
Right.
And like I said, this is not an element where the people need to rebel and revolt. Like, this is just the writing on the wall. And
Yeah.
it becomes more appropriate and welcome, because you're right. Somebody needs to start using this technology in a public way. And I know it's weird because they're the CCP and they have that entire, but I mean,
We
all
probably have to rid
technology is
ourselves
good.
of that perception.
Well, all technology is good. Exactly. How can we say it's weird for them to build an artificial moon when it really just seemed to be possible? Like, I'm saying, like, what's possible? Like, I kind of think
Yeah.
that's cool. I think that's
Yeah.
cool, to be honest. Exactly. Like, I think that's fucking rad. I think what China building an underwater city publicly, I think that's pretty ballsy. Like, we need to admit that we've done the same thing. For anything, I'm against the censorship in America. I'm not for China claiming these technologies. We need to
Their own,
rightfully
right?
say that
Yeah.
they were ours, and that
Right.
we have the right to. We need to just make disclosure happen. Exactly. But like I said, that's a personal choice. It's never going to come from the top of our elite down. Our elite is built to keep the secret, because in the secret is their power,
Mhm.
Right.
and they control us through ignorance. And they fear us for actually opening our eyes, because they can't turn off the light. They can just tell everyone to close their eyes.
Yep.
And that's exactly how it is. They can't turn off the light. There are three things that can't be held for long: the sun, the moon, and truth. And exactly, like, everyone who wants to investigate for themselves will be open the doors of knowledge. They can knock on the Akashic records. Everyone individual can do this. They don't teach the Akashic records in Western society specifically because of that. There's a reason why Hinduism is not popular in the West. That's what
Right.
they'll do. They'll make Hinduism seem very obscure, even though there's a billion Hindus. And I'm doing a series on my podcast about the Vedic reality. And I'm like, it's every day I look into it and research it, I'm just kind of like sitting there like, they've known about this literally for like 10,000 years.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The entire secret space program, the entire echelon, and it's all written in a common. I'm saying, like, it's so alien to our society that we want to deny that the gate isn't locked, the door is
Right.
not even closed.
Right.
It's not.
We're
As I
just like turned around from it. Yeah.
exactly. It's like, we're like stumbling around thinking that we're blind, but really we just have our eyes closed. It's literally that easy of a choice. And it's like kind of laughable, because our society, it tricks us like an evil wizard into fucking thinking that wise men are fools and fools are wise men.
Right.
And that's in the Bible, like the Holy Bible, that you can find in any hotel room. You can open up the top drawer, pull out Gideon's, look into it, and it says they will confuse good with evil and evil with good. And it's like, exactly, that's what I'm saying, like the catch the pebble from your hand type thing. It literally is just a test. If you can do a simple action with confidence, like if you can start learning for yourself and opening your own eyes, all of this politically, socially, technologically, like you said before, if you could, how would it take to build in your garage? You can achieve nirvana in your backyard.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I'm saying like it's. I don't want to say like I'm shaming anyone for not doing it. I'm just saying like it's a question of, are you willing to go to the public library? Are you willing to actually admit that you might not know that something's impossible or not? Like I said, are you willing to teach yourself from the like a humble student and just be like, yeah, what is electrical engineering? I don't know electrical. Like, let me learn it. Like, it's like, oh, that's what resistance is. Oh, that's an ohm. Like,
Yeah, I know what you're
are you
saying.
willing to really just take the groundwork, the base work, and perfect yourself personally? No one can teach you this. Everyone expects someone to be able to be like, just zats, and you are woken up. No, it's like I can point you to the evidence. I can tell you what I know, but for you to know it, you also have to take those steps. Exactly, like you also have to see it for yourself. Like you showed with the Cuba thing. I told you there was a city they found underwater in Cuba. It's been a thing. It's like a huge thing in the U.S. Navy lore and in the real secret space program realities. You Googled it for your, or you DuckDuckGo'd it for yourself. You saw the picture and you showed me, and I can. You have to then look for it and see it for yourself.
I didn't need, the United States government to tell me what I'm looking at or what I'm not looking at.
And not even that, the U.S. government, it can't hide it. They don't have to admit to it, and they never will.
Right. Gotcha.
But
brother,
right
sorry,
there,
we're right. Sorry, we're coming close on time. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap this up, and you can let everybody know where to find you and everything?
No, I'll just the quick conclusion to reiterate the points of today's conversation. The information's there to have. It's not going to be the government to cause disclosure. There's not going to be a silver bullet that comes from the elite, because the elite are in power specifically to keep the secret.
Would you say there's a chance of a silver bullet, but it would be a total fluke? Like it would
have to be personal. No, you're right. Like there's something in your life, if you're listening to this and you are on the fence, if you don't have that silver bullet, and if you are thinking right now that you have it, you're on the right path, because exactly you're using your head going, I saw that video, and that video proves that you're right. That's where you want to be. If you haven't, there will be a point in your life where you will see either an eyewitness testimony or a video or evidence or something happen, watching the news, and you see a man's face morph into a reptilian, and that'll be your silver bullet moment. That'll be your miracle. As I'm saying, like the miracle doesn't come from the preacher. It comes from God. You don't see reality because someone tells you it's reality. You see reality because you open your eyes. And like I said, I keep using that thing, open your eyes. And there's a reason why in a lot of these secret societies, Gnostic societies, they tell you you're coming out from the darkness and you're entering the light. You were dead, now you are alive. There's a reason. Exactly. And that's the whole rabbit hole in itself there. But the Pentagon Papers, the disclosure in June, that's the hype machine from people who don't really take it seriously. They're just the clowns and the fools of the world who say you'll pay attention every year. There's something that all the amateurs, all the lower vibrational people, grab it. They think is the secret hope. Tom DeLonge, the UAPs. And not to say that you shouldn't listen to these people. You should learn as much as you can about Stephen Greer, but they'll focus on these people and think that they're their disclosure.
Yeah.
But if you look at the big scheme of things, Stephen Greer has been on Netflix since 2015. The government still doesn't admit that aliens exist. They said the Pentagon Papers. They can have as much disclosure of little evidence without revealing the big picture. There's an infinite amount of area for them to play in. So that's what they'll do until they get the approval from above. Like the Israeli Space Commissioner said. He said it best. That's the point I wanted to make. Before that guy said no power that can refute. They just work on the level of how there's a civil, and it can become the new reality. Because
I want you to make that point a lot too. So back it up just a second again. So the whole thing's not like any at all cutting out. The Israeli space, from there.
So the Israeli space program chief, the former chief, said it best, that there is an alien superpower controlling all of Earth government down is going to occur. That's going to like upset that. It's going to change that. The real approval comes from extraterrestrials. They are the ones that control our reality. So if there's going to be any discussion of real disclosure, it's going to be coming from their choice, not ours. Now, the only hope is that the breakaway civilization is sooner than later made a disclosed, right? It's disclosed because
Right.
that will be the moment where it all starts coming together. That'll
Right.
be the moment when it's taught in schools. That'll be the moment when it, you know, there is no longer a debate or a controversy. That is when we have graduated into the next level, when we have ascended as a species, is when disclosure of the secret space program is accepted by the majority of the human race.
Yeah.
This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. There's podcasts around the world, people around the world creating podcasts, people creating YouTube channels, people talking about their experiences, their dreams, their visions, talking about reality and questioning the system. People are waking up, and it's all a part of the grand awakening. We're all opening our eyes, you know, maybe one at a time, but pretty soon, if everyone opens their eyes one at a time, it'll be everyone having done it, right?
It's like a big web.
It's the wave, it's the momentum, because truth always changes the world.
Right, brother. Please tell everybody where they could. Please tell everyone where they could find you and all that stuff. I know that everybody on this show probably knows, but refresh, a bit of a refresh probably wouldn't hurt.
It's the Rumors of Instinct podcast on YouTube. You can follow my Instagram at Rumors of Instinct, just one word, to keep up with me on my daily my research. I really only use Instagram and YouTube to also upload my videos and to get it across. But you can also, you know, just keep up with my archive of videos if you have any questions, or, you know, I've covered a lot of material, over 300 videos on YouTube, over 100 episodes on podcasts, and I'm editing and re-releasing the material as I'm re-listening to it and making it more streamlined for the newer listeners. Exactly. I'm always open to communicate. So if you want to reach out, DM me, comment, but I always read them on YouTube and everything. So any questions you have now or later, if you're reading my material, let me know, reach out. Exactly. I'm always open to speak about this stuff. You know, so namaste and shalom. I hope you guys have been inspired by this message, as well as thanking you once again for having me on to speak about it. I said there's a lot of material to cover. We spoke for 3 hours, but I think we only hit like we're only getting into the first, you know, inches of the iceberg, basically. Like it's just this huge
Right.
task of digging out the Sphinx, you know, unburying the Sphinx.
Right.
And
Sorry, brother. One more thing. I think Camden had a final question. My apologies. He wanted to ask
I
you.
did. Yeah.
A bit more of a personal note, but please.
Right. Oh, I just wanted to ask you on your opinion. It's your own perspective. We've talked a lot about how, you know, nothing gets said without being approved already. China doesn't do anything without it being approved from so in your perspective, why do you think you're allowed to speak the way you are? Is it for that truth movement, for to get people to listen, for that, you know what I mean? Do you think that that's really a you know, and a decision that
in
to?
All honesty, brother, why there's a lot of people that have reached out to me personally too, saying, hey, that guy Rumors of Instinct should watch his back, because you never know, right? Like, why do you feel so confident, or do you just not care?
Twofold. One, the whole idea of suppressed information via danger, physical danger, actually misunderstood phenomenon, right? They can't fight the truth even with violence. It can only do like if it's internally corrupt somehow through the system, right? Exactly. Like if you make these deals with devils, can devils actually hurt you, right? Because I have done no such thing, and I'm doing my own, speaking from my heart and speaking my truth. There is a literal armor around me, and also, like I said, heroes welcome. So, like I said, I was in the Secret Space program. I was actually in some pretty intense stuff. Not saying that I was any kind of top brass level, but I was favored by Ashtar Venusian leadership at some point, even just as a recruit. And like I said, once they once they get you in a favorable position, once they actually select, like I said, it's not because I did anything. I was chosen before I was born through spirit, through karma, through incarnation into this physical reality, because this was all, like I said, part of the plan. This right now, part of the plan. Some of what I was even experiencing and training while I was a teenager, while in the secret space program, was eventually to do this. To say, like, they think about things like, what, yes, you can be a warrior when you're a young man. When you're an older man, you will be a teacher. So they teach you how to teach. They teach you how to stand in your truth, to debate. They teach you how to do your own research. This is all, like I said, it seems very superfluous that they would do that. But do you know that's how intelligence agencies operate? Yes, there's the nuts and bolts. Yes, there's your specialty. There's also the philosophy. There's the ability to recruit and to operate and organize yourself, exactly, to keep your morale up, the psychology behind it. And so it's all, like I said, there's no men in black. It's the United States Navy. I'm protected by the United States Navy. I served them well with Solar Warden. I'm in their eyes still a hero. It's just that politically they have to kind of distance themselves and everything from it. The idea of my material circumstances, it's not, like you said, so imagine if you were a Samoan who was recruited to fight for the United States Navy in World War II. Then they let you go back to your island and you're sitting there eating a coconut, trying to tell people about this great empire of civilized humans and ships and technologies, and you fought this war, and no one believes you because all I do is eat coconuts all day. And
that's a good example. I see what you. That's a very good example.
I got it bad. I'm just returned back to my wild. What did I say? The game reserve. I just am returned back into what you would call my normal life. The existential situation I'm in is actually a blessing, and just like prophets of old, just because you still wore sandals and had to do things like provide for yourself and live every day, you did have a connection with the divine. I did have a connection. And I was like, this is all part, and you're like, why wouldn't the Romans just kill you? Maybe that's my fate. I'm not decided upon the future. At the same time, I do know that even the disciples were allowed to travel town to town and preach for their allotted time. That's what I'm saying, like this idea of why exactly is, I don't ask why. There are higher powers though that I would have a hard time even explaining, things like psychic guardians that you would know as like guardian angels, which are actually other forms of extraterrestrials. Exactly, even the Pleiadians who have 4D psychic ability, they can just make sure I lived in a very safe environment. 20 years ago. Like I said, I'm 34 now, so I was actually 4 years old or 5 years older than the oldest I was in Solar Warden. And as I say, like this is not a issue of having to watch my back. This is the next evolution of my path as this warrior of light, as this Solar Warden operative.
I don't want to use the word, but would asset or former asset be
I consider myself like an intelligence agent.
That's what I was trying to compare it to. Yeah,
not a spy, but someone who does gather intelligence and does things like psyops, but for good and for disclosure. And like I said, this is a very weird paradox where the matrix system that they've created is to test you as a human being, to illuminate others and be kind, and simple things that you might think they're mundane realities. These are tests that are in the matrix system. Very, like say, like what if you're walking and you see a tortoise on the road, and you go pick up the tortoise and you're kind to it, you take it home, and then you make it your tortoise and then you realize that tortoise was actually a drone sent to kind of approve your, that's like, you don't even realize that's an artificial creature created from cellular robotics, and this is all like, you think this is reality. This is not reality. Some of your neighbors are androids. This is all part of a temporary reality. You could be literally in a stasis chamber, VR,
and not know it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And like I'm talking to you now, and I trust that you are a real person. But to be honest, if you wanted to go really solar warrior about, this is exactly why I talk about the astral world. This lifespan that I'm in currently could be one of the many thousands of lifespans that were virtual reality that I
certainly hope I'm not VR, brother, but I know what you're saying.
So this is the idea of the Vedic universe, where they said, like, you think what you think is real is but a dream for the ultimate Brahma Vishnu spirit. So even when you go into the higher levels of reality, it's all just illusionary dreams of a super intelligence. And it goes into this, I say, like, you gotta put that shit into overdrive. Like, right. Like the idea of, like, there's supreme beings that this is all a dream. I'm a dream. Like, this is inception level, like, reality. I say, like, exactly, like, you know, even the most experimental ways of discussing reality, like inception, or merely the sticks and stones, like I said, of someone trying to make music playing sticks and stones. Like, you know, like, it's not like we're using what we consider the natural world, but it's all been formulated since the very beginning. We're an artificial species. We're not even a real, like, evolved. It's like the battle between the mind and the body, and then with the mind and society, and the mind and the self, it goes on to, and this is exactly what they want. They need, the hardest battle isn't getting people to fight Orion Draco. It's not getting people to fight the insectalians when they show up. It's getting people to enlighten and protect other people. Because the greatest challenge, really personally, is to believe in y'all, is to believe in the regular non-initiated population. Because I believe a great majority actually are initiated. They just need to realize, they need to remember it. They need the message. And that's what I was saying. That is my motivation in a summary, is because I know that there are others who have experienced this, ranging in the hundreds of millions. And I'm not saying just Americans, I'm saying around the world. This is a larger scale. And because I believe that it's for the greater good, this isn't a matter of me telling the communists some secrets about the nuclear weapons.
No. Right.
And I would get shot in the back of the head. And no, I'm not doing it for evil, corrupt means.
It's bigger than that.
Exactly. And that's why if you really look at it through history, like here's a big Bill Cooper shot because he was a informant that went rogue. So it wasn't the fact that he was telling truth, it was the fact that he had already made a deal. Do you understand? Like, it's like, who you think your heroes are, the reason why they were really killed is because they were not who you really think they are.
Yes, right. Brother, I'm so sorry, but we're on a bit of,
it's heartbreaking.
Brother, sorry, a little bit of a time limit. I'm gonna have to cut this, to call it. We kind of went about 20, but I want to thank you so much for all of this, man. I'm telling you that the audience is gonna love it. It's gonna be a huge success, I'm sure.
No problem. Absolutely. Like I said, this is one of the greatest joys of this year, is actually having these conversations with you and being collaborative in this way. There's a lot of information that I have trouble even getting out and expressing unless I'm asked and talked to about it. And I appreciate you. You ask the real questions. You ask that you do like the real research on your own. So you meet me halfway. And no, absolutely. And I highly encourage you to get back to me and let's do another show ASAP. I know
absolutely, brother,
schedule and everything, but keep like if we do this regularly, we can start getting some momentum and everything. But yeah, I absolutely appreciate you having me on. Absolutely appreciate you letting me speak to your audience and my audience. Appreciate, and like I said, I hope we eventually develop a network of like-minded, and so it's all sharing communications, all forming like our own directory and stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Start of a lot of great things.
Thank you, absolutely, 100%, brother. Thank you so much, and we'll chat very soon, bro.
No problem.
All right, cheers.